Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll see what happens. We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I am a dissident.
Don't move. Move.
I'm saying no lie here. Palantir, 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 Palantir. It's not going to stop.
Seriously, we need to release the F-scene list.
Church off!
I am not a church boy.
Church off!
They're full-on vampires.
They hate our beef. They hate our beef. They hate our beef because our beef is beautiful and theirs is weak.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a Sunday evening edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. My name is Keaton Weiss. Thank you all very, very much for being here tonight. Well, folks, we have reached the finish line, the proverbial finish line. That is right. And it's bittersweet because, as you know, I have moved. Is this shirt missing a button? Is this one of those Seinfeld things where the top button is too low? Top button is too low. All right. Guess I'm showing some chest here tonight. No, I'm sorry about that. Did not mean for that. I assumed there was another button here. There's no other button here. Too late now. Stuck with it. Hope you like what you see. Hope you like what you see. Too late for a wardrobe change. Too late to wax my chest. So don't mean to intimidate any men in the audience tonight, but you got a little chest here you're gonna have to see, you have to deal with going there. Anyway, what's bittersweet about this being the end of the line in terms of my solo stint is that it does mean, because I am not yet moved out of my old apartment, and because I have to be out by Friday, and because things are always crazy at the end of a move, there will not be a show on Tuesday, which means that the next show after this will be the return of one Russell Dobular. So you have that to look forward to. Next time you see us will be with Russell in his usual chair. So you have that to look forward to. But tonight, we have a lot to look forward to. I'm going to waste no more time, I should say. I already wasted a little bit of time. Sorry about that, Garland. We're going to waste no more time introducing our special guest of the evening. He is a veteran TV and radio host. He's also an independent journalist and commentator on YouTube and on X. The name of his show is the name of his name, Garland Nixon. Garland, great to see you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. We've never done a show together. I mean, we've known each other a little while. We've crossed paths before, online and in person, at some Jose Vega campaign events, you know, but never actually did a show before. How'd you get involved with Jose Vega?
Oh, I don't know. I was doing some odds and ends. If somebody asked me to speak somewhere, I have a hard time saying no. And like some people had asked me to speak in New York, and I was there, and Jose was there, and I liked the stuff he was saying. And of course, I'd heard of Jose because he was doing, he was going into whoever, some member of Congress's event, screaming and yelling like a maniac, which I think is fantastic. And so I'm like, hey, I'm down.
Awesome. Yeah. We were at the big concert / rally in October of 2024. So that was a great time. He helped facilitate this partnership for the evening. Thank you so much for joining. It's great to see you. We got 803 strong in the YouTube chat to start things off. 424 strong over on Rumble. Lots to get to, but Garland, most of our audience knows who you are, I think. But to those who don't, why don't you give us a little introduction to yourself, how you got involved in all this, how long you've been in this crazy indie media space?
Well, oddly enough, I got started with radio like around 2000, 2001. At that time, I was on the board of directors of the ACLU, all places, back when I was with the ACLU. And I just was like, you know, if they asked for people to come out and speak or debate or whatever, you know, well, hey, I'd like to be considered. They said, sure. And actually what happened was there was a conservative radio station and they said, hey, we'd like someone to come out and debate us about the death penalty. And I'm like, great. And I went out there and debated them and they liked me so much. They're like, hey, would you come back every week from now on and do an hour with us? And that's how I got started doing radio. And I just, you know, I had fun. I was joking. I was like, you know, I was on one side of the aisle. They were on the other back when I was a Democrat. But they expected something different. And I liked the guys and they liked me and we had fun. So it was an amicable disagreement, an amicable debate. And that's probably how I ended up at Fox eventually also. Just, you know, the ability to really kind of disagree with people, but not actually dislike them and see them as somehow morally inferior to me simply because we disagreed over some significant issues. And that's the kind of history of my career.
Awesome. Well, it led you here. So for what it's worth, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but here we are. Here we are. All right, let's get started. Let's do some material here. So we are in this ceasefire between the United States, Israel, and Iran. And looks like there could be an extension of the ceasefire, which means that Barry Weiss had to set up an interview between the boss and the news network to let the slave know that his work is not done until that uranium is extracted. So here on 60 Minutes is Benjamin Netanyahu. 60 Minutes are copyright hungry, so we will go audio only for this. But here he is warning that the war is not over, despite the ceasefire.
Over, and if it isn't, who will decide when it is?
I think it accomplished a great deal, but it's not over because there's still nuclear material, enriched uranium that has to be taken out of Iran. There's still enrichment sites that have to be dismantled. There's still proxies that Iran supports. There are ballistic missiles that they still want to produce. Now, we've degraded a lot of it, but all of that is still there, and there's work to be done.
How do you envision the highly enriched uranium will be removed from Iran?
You go in and you take it out.
With what? Special forces from Israel? Special forces of the United States?
Well, I'm not going to talk about
No, not from Israel. No. We send in the Goyim to get the uranium. Not
he said you.
Yeah, you go.
You go. He didn't say I go in. How does this happen? You, cannon fodder, go in and you take it out. If any of you survive to take it out. But
yeah.
I mean, we know this isn't about nuclear material anyway. This is an absurd and preposterous joke to pretend that this is about nuclear material.
Of course.
Military means, but what President Trump has said to me, I want to go in there. And I think it can be done physically. That's not the problem. If you have an agreement and you go in and you take it out, why not? That's the best way.
If you have enough Gentiles, you could do anything.
What if there isn't an agreement? Can it be taken out by force?
Well, you're going to ask me these questions. I'm going to dodge them because I'm not going to talk about our military possibilities, plans, or anything of the kind.
And I'm just trying to get at how long is it going to take to achieve that aim?
I'm not going to give a timetable to it, but I'm going to say that's a terrifically important mission.
A terrifically important mission. Well, yeah, Iran responds to the latest U.S. proposal to end war, but offers few details. So this is this morning. Iran has formally responded to the latest U.S. proposal to end the war, Iranian state media said on Sunday, after a tense week of attacks and counterattacks in the Persian Gulf has rattled the fragile truce. But the announcement provided few details about whether a comprehensive agreement could follow. Negotiators for Iran passed their response to Pakistan mediators who have been brokering the talks, according to Iran's state broadcaster. White House officials did not respond to a request for comment on Iran's response. Iranian officials have said the two countries are working on a short-term agreement that would pause fighting for another 30 days and end Iran's blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, a key oil and gas shipping route in the Persian Gulf. The officials said the United States and Iran would try to reach a comprehensive deal during the month-long lull. I wonder if there'll be any, exchanges on like boats and stuff during this lull, because even though there's technically a ceasefire, there seems to be some firing. for a ceasefire, right?
Yeah, the U.S. They want to violate the ceasefire. They're short of weapons, so they're going to do the best they can. You know, you got to get in, throw a couple missiles every now and then just to keep the lunatics happy. You know, the interesting thing about that discussion is they left out one very important factor in this discussion of how you're going to force Iran to do whatever it is you're claiming you want them to do. You just lost a war to them. They could have started off with that. Look, you guys attacked Iran and you lost. So now that you lost the war, how are you going to force them to capitulate as though you won the war, even though you lost it? How do you pull that one off? Houdini, you know, what kind of a magical David Copperfield trick do you have to lose a war and then get the same results as though you had won it? I think that's the question I'd probably ask.
Yeah, that is some real art of the deal stuff right there, if they can make that happen. A persistent issue in the talks is the 970 pounds of near bomb-grade enriched uranium that international inspectors say is most likely buried at 2 of those sites. Iran has ruled out giving up the uranium as part of a deal. Mr. Trump has sent mixed messages about the uranium, including saying last month that he didn't really care about it because it is so far underground. But in an interview released by the syndicated news show Full Measure on Sunday, Mr. Trump said the U.S. would get that at some point. So here he is.
Or if we have not yet gotten the nuclear materials, the enriched uranium from them.
Well, we'll get that at some point, whatever we want. We have it surveilled. You know, I did a thing called Space Force, and they are watching that if somebody walked in, they can tell you his name, his address, the number of his badge. No, we have that very well surveilled. If anybody got near the place, we will know about it, and we'll blow them up. Big talk once again. On Sunday, Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, as we just saw, said the conflict with Iran was, quote, not over, in part because Iran had yet to give up the material that Israel fears could one day be made into a nuclear weapon. So I said, as the U.S. and Iran close in on a 30-day ceasefire, Barry Weiss puts Bibi on primetime to remind his slave that his work isn't done until he fetches his uranium. But hey, the media likes it. The media likes the idea. Here's Michael Smerconish, who also is not going to be one of the men going in, putting his body where his big fat fucking mouth is to get this uranium. Here he goes.
In fact, the president seems focused now on the enriched uranium, which is the most important reason that we're there. Don't shut it down without taking control of that enriched uranium. That would be a tangible benefit to make this worthwhile, in my view.
In your view. That's great. That's great. So maybe you should go get it then. Go get it if you want it.
You know, the interesting thing, even if you listen to Smerconish, he even kind of inadvertently admits that there were multiple reasons given for this. He's like, I think that's the one most okay, protesters, fair enough. Ballistic missiles, yeah, sure. But okay, how about this one? Remember when the President Trump was asked why he was claiming that the Iranians had a nuclear weapons program when Tulsi Gabbard had just released an intelligence report that said they didn't have a weapons program, and he said, I don't care what she says. But for some reason, I didn't hear that out of Smerconish. How about this? How about just 2 days ago, when there was a Fox News released an article, and in that article was Joe Kent saying the CIA and the intelligence community both assessed before this thing started that Iran does not have a nuclear weapons program. So Donald Trump is saying they definitely have one. So why wouldn't you say to Donald Trump, hey, look, the CIA and the intelligence community both say there's no nuclear weapons program, but yet you say there definitely is. Why aren't you sharing your data with them? What is it about? Why do you think there's a gulf? Why do you think there's just such a disagreement between you and your own intelligence agencies? And why haven't you fired them or replaced them if they're that bad and they're off? And, they won't, no one will go there because they know that the whole thing's a fraud. It is we got to get rid of Iran because we overthrew their government. We put in a puppet government, and they had a revolution, and they took it back, and we won it. Doggone it, they're not allowed. Why didn't you just say that? They're not allowed to have their own government. We want the country back. They got oil. They have all kinds of things that we want, and we're gonna. If Iran says yes, you can have the enriched uranium, well, then there's got to be something else, because we want to overthrow the government. That's all it is. And the absurdity, the preposterous nature of the conversation when you started off telling us it was about protesters.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. And then they wanted to believe it was 45,000 protesters killed. And what did they release? A picture of like a dozen like body bags. Scott Horton was just on with Piers Morgan talking about that. Yeah, no, and you know, if you really want to know who's in the driver's seat here, just again, look at this exchange. Look at Donald Trump saying, you know, the uranium, it's so far underground, we don't really care about the uranium. Bibi on 60 Minutes, we need the uranium. Okay, maybe we'll get it at some point. Like, he seems to be so clearly trying to wiggle out, but he can't. He can't. He's not the boss here. I think that much is pretty obvious. I mean, it becomes more obvious every time I see an exchange like this. He'll say something, you know, kind of sheepishly. The Israelis will contradict him, and then he'll fall in line.
Yeah, but this is the Trump administration. This is it. Oh, this is the same Trump administration that said, we're going to release the Epstein files. Hey, you're going to release the Epstein files. There are no Epstein files. What are you talking about? Right. They don't exist. And then a week later, yep, we're releasing the Epstein files. Hey, but you didn't even give us half of them. Yeah, that's all you're going to get. So we're going to release them. They don't exist. Then we are going to release them, but we're not going to release all of them. Now we're going to release, you know, so this is an administration that simply says whatever needs to be said on a given day. Something exists, something doesn't exist. Things come and go in our universe. I think they're dealing with like microparticles or something that just pop out of nowhere and then disappear again.
Yeah, like vaporized rat shit microparticles, you know? Yeah, Hantavirus, hey, you know? One day it's here, one day it's not. It's under control. It'll be fine. We'll get to all that. I liked your tweet about that. But yeah, so we're in this kind of like you know, I don't want to say stalemate, because you're right. I mean, Iran has essentially won. We started a war, we lost it, and now we have to figure out a way to get out of it. But as you said, you know, this goes back decades. I mean, Netanyahu's wanted this war for literally 40 years. He's been agitating for this war since the 80s, and they seem to have got a guy who was just incapable, for whatever reason, of telling them no.
Well, I would do it. I think actually differently for this reason. You know, Amos Hochstein, Joe Biden's boy, the guy who was behind blowing up Nord Stream and all this kind of crap. The same, he did the Hunter Biden way back when he worked for the Obama State Department, and then he went over to, what was it, Ukraine, and got a job on the board of directors of Naftagaz, right? So this guy's a slickster that's always, you know, filling his pockets full of filthy money. And the other on the Sunday shows a couple weeks ago, he said, well, if Biden had won, we'd have probably had to bomb him anyway. So I don't think this is as much about Trump and say even Netanyahu as we make it out to be. It is, but it isn't, in that if Netanyahu and Trump both drop dead the day after the election, whatever puppets that got stuck in, it looks to me like it was in the cards. This was the next move. This is what they had to do next. And whoever was there, I mean, maybe, I don't know, I'm being cynical. Maybe these guys are the ones making the decisions. But as far as I'm concerned, Amos Hochstein, when he says it was going to happen anyway. And yeah, based on what Kamala Harris was saying, I mean, she was attacking Trump from the right. She was attacking Trump from the pro-war. You know, everything's on the table from Iran. So I guess I'm cynical about the idea that this really is completely about Trump. It's just that he's such a hapless bungler, thankfully, that he makes it obvious.
Well, I don't know that it's completely about Trump. I mean, I don't know how far apart we are. I don't think it's like, I think clearly when Wesley Clark said there are plans to invade 7 countries in 5 years, and he listed Iran as one of them, clearly the plan was to get this war going sooner than now. So, like, I think just because, you know, certain embedded powers within the permanent state want something doesn't mean they can get it right away. I think the reason they didn't get it right after 9/11, the way they planned it, was because too many things went wrong. And I listened to John Kiriakou, on multiple shows say, hey, when I was in the CIA, every time the Israelis came to Washington, they begged the president to bomb Iran. And the president always said, like, no, we can't right now. It's not that we don't plan to at some point, but just see how suicidal this is. See how far wrong this went instantly, immediately. Like, it was just so irrational. There was no conceivable path to anything resembling success or victory here. That's why I'm kind of the opinion that it took someone as under the thumb. It took a dog on a leash to actually do it. And Trump seems to be the dog on the leash. That doesn't mean it wasn't the plan. It just means I think they needed this guy who literally just, when you say jump, he jumps in order to get it off the ground right now.
I think that's a valid argument for this reason. The other part of it is this: just because Hochstein said that, don't mean that you know what I mean. That I can trust Ernest Hochstein. It could very well have been that he's saying that to try to get Trump off the hook a little bit. Number one, and number two, as you said, it could have very well been that there were people that had the plan. All right, whoever's president next, let's do it. And if they came to the president and said, let's do it, that again, whoever was there would get cold feet. Could have been in the past they planned it, and that the presidents get cold feet and say, man, if I do this, I am totally screwed. And you got Trump, who's maybe a bit compromised in the Epstein files. So he's compromised. And I think the setup really was Venezuela. The setup in two ways. Number one, we do Venezuela and we make it look like we can do anything we want easy. So number one, the American people see that and they're like, hey, Venezuela, Iran, we can do whatever we want. And they're kind of chilled about it. They do it. Meanwhile, Trump's like, hey, wow, that was easy. We can do anything we want. So there's a setup for Venezuela for both the American people to be prepared and to think we're almighty, and for Trump to think we're almighty. And knowing, they did psychological profiles of Trump. And they said, all we got to do is this. He's going to think it's great. Then we connect it to that. Then he'll say yes, guaranteed. So I think the likelihood is that Venezuela was a big part of setting Trump up to believe that this would work.
Yeah, I think that's totally true. In fact, now that you mention it, didn't Trump even say something to the effect of like what you just summarized? Like, the only thing that can stop me is my own sense of morality or something like that, right? He said something very, very similar to that, when it came to, what country's going to be next on the list. Because they're already talking about Cuba. Of course, they've run into a little bit of a stagmire, as Carmine Jr. would say here. But yeah, I think for a while there, especially after Venezuela, I mean, people were of the opinion that this was going to be just as easy. And anybody who knew anything knew that not only was this going to be not just as easy, this was going to be 1,000 times harder than Iraq, which was a disaster.
And in fact, there were a lot of people, me being one, and a lot of other people, I'm not bragging about it, I think it was fairly obvious to me anyway, who'd said, oh, if they do this, they're going to lose. You know what I mean? If you looked at this and you watched the 12-day war and you saw that the 12-day war was actually really decided about 3 days to 4 days in, everybody's like, well, Israel ain't winning this one, right? But it was so lopsided because the United States, Israel was using U.S. technology, and you could see it's not up to par. They don't have adequate air defense systems. And when you realize that, you're like, in this day and age, man, if you ain't got adequate air defense systems and you're fighting a guy who uses drones and missiles all the time, your goose is cooked. And so to me, it was like kind of obvious they were going to lose. But as we said, but it didn't matter. They set Trump up. And now it's catastrophic for everybody.
100%. All right, let's take some Rumble rants and super chats before we go on to our next segment. Everything's a scam, everything's a lie, everything's hypocrisy, and so you don't comply. Thank you, Vienticus. Appreciate that. Hey, I emailed you back, Vienticus. You check your email, Vienticus. Eric Rousseau, humanoid robot ordained as Buddhist monk, pledges devotion to holy Buddha. Gabi took modified vows, including pledging to save energy by not overcharging and refraining from deceptive behavior. Thank you, Eric Rousseau.
Oh, real quick, have you seen, they've got these AI preachers, they've got an AI rabbi and all this stuff where you can like go online. One of them is called GP Jew. It's an AI rabbi where you go online and you like ask them questions about whatever the particular religion is, and they tell you stuff. So there's AI sites, and they're like actually supposed to be a preacher or a priest or a rabbi or whatever religion it is, and it's just like an AI chatbot or something. And I mean,
that's pretty cool.
Think about it.
I got some questions for the AI rabbi. I'd like to ask it, see how good it is, see how close it is. So if you put a quarter in the meter and the meter breaks after you pay, but before your time is up, are you still on the hook? You know, if the meter maid comes around. I think that's a question only a rabbi could answer. So we'll see. We'll see how good he is. Also, I had this whole funny passive aggressive thing I was going to say to remind you that I came, but now I can't. LOL. Yeah, that's right, because I responded to your email as I told you I would. Thank you, Vindicated. AI robots are taking both clergy and sex works jobs. That's right. That's right. Eric Rousseau says, cannot wait for either the Chinese or Palantir AI sex robots, where every nut is a psyop. Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Eric Rousseau. Eric Rousseau says, or false flag for us old farts. That's right. Kemin G says, terrific shave, Keaton. Bowl lather or aerosol can. No, it's an electric razor, and actually it looks better on screen than it is in real life. It's just, but I did spring for a new one because I just couldn't find the old one. But I got a $25 one because I just couldn't spring for the $40 one. And it's not as good as it looks on the screen. But hey, on the screen is really all that matters. As long as I look good on the screen.
I just realized I look like I'm in the. Hold on, I got to turn my light on. For God's sake, man.
No worries, no worries.
For God's sake.
See, Russ always gets mad at me when I don't check his light and go right away. Oh. Nina Kant says, I'm here at work, Sam's Club gas station, and Mom gave me a present to herself.
Got a little bit of light
tank of gas. Wow. Oh, there you go. Yeah, that does look a little better.
A little better.
Nice. Wow. A present to herself, a Mother's Day present to herself was a full tank of gas. Yeah, fuck war. Yep. It's gotten up around almost $5 a gallon here in New York.
Hey, dude,
area, right, Garland?
I'm about to sell my pickup truck, but I got a diesel pickup truck. F-250, 6.7. Dude, I mean, I had over a quarter tank of gas, and it still cost me $100 to fill it up.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Username, ceasefire is a term of art on Wall Street for Besson is doing insider trading. Yeah, that's right. You're in the D.C. area, right?
Yes, I am.
Garland? There you go. So that's where it is down there. All right. Yep. Upstate New York. It's getting up to 5. It's over 450 now up here.
Yeah,
really crazy stuff.
Yes, but if you have a car like I do, your vehicle that you have to put high test in it, it's like $5.55.
Oh yeah, because you can't just get the regular
high test only, and just like $5.55 per gallon.
Wow, that is just brutal. All right, let's move right on along to another war that's going on here. Oops. So there was a 3-day ceasefire, looks like, in the Ukraine-Russia war. Here's Donald Trump, taking a victory lap for that.
Decide to pull troops from Germany. Will you move them to Poland or maybe some other countries on the eastern flank?
Well, Poland would like that. We have a great relationship with Poland. I have a great relationship with the president. You remember, I endorsed him, and he won. And he came from way behind and he won. He's a great fighter. He's a great guy. I like him a lot. So that's possible.
But will you do it? He's asking you for more troops.
No, I don't even know what the hell. What was that? The wrong video? Interesting.
Because every video with Trump is the same. I endorsed him and he won. Somewhere in there is, look at me, I'm great, I did something fantastic. He will be feeding his narcissistic needs. So every video, it's the greatest. Nobody's ever seen anything like that. He took a medical test or something. Remember that? He took some medical test. He says, the doctors told me they'd never seen an outcome from a medical test like that.
Yeah, I remember that.
They checked your blood pressure, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Freaking light in your flashlight in your ears, and they've never seen anything like that before. He's a very sick man. I'm just saying.
Very sick man. Yeah, I don't know if that was Fox's mistake on the tweet or if that was my mistake if I pulled the wrong video. I thought I checked it beforehand, but oh well. Whatever that is. The bottom line is Putin says in latest call with Trump we discussed May 9th, Trump remembered our common struggle against Nazism and Russia planned to declare ceasefire on May 8th and 9th. Trump supported it. So here's what Putin.
The latest phone conversation with the President of the United States, President Trump, we spoke about May 9th, and I believe he spoke about it in very good terms. He remembered our common struggle against Nazism, and I said that I plan to declare May 8th and May 9th ceasefire. Why May 8th? Because that's when they celebrate the Victory Day in the West, and Ukraine also joined the West in this regard, so they consider May 8th the Victory Day. And President Trump supported it, and literally the next day we declared our intention, but as soon as we declared that, we received no reaction from anyone, and then day or two later, when probably in Kyiv they thought and they realized that this step is supported by the U.S. administration, they thought that it would be beneficial for them to react to that. To react how? To agree to our proposal. They believed it was not to their advantage, so they came up with a different proposal to have a ceasefire in May 6th.
And here is Putin believes the Ukraine war is coming to an end. This was the big money quote. So here it is, translated once again.
That it is coming to an end, but nevertheless, that was a serious thing to do. So the question is, why did it happen? Because they expected to crush Russia, to destroy the statehood within a few months, but they failed. But, well, they got stuck into this, and now they cannot get out of this. Even though there are enough smart people out there, there are those people who understand what is happening. And I hope that these political forces will step by step get back to the leadership positions, or they will seize power with the support of the vast majority of the European countries. And
so, yep, that's the money quote. Putin says he thinks the Russia-Ukraine war is coming to an end. From Reuters, Russian President Vladimir Putin said on Saturday that he thought the Ukraine war was coming to an end, remarks that came just hours after he had vowed victory in Ukraine at Moscow's most scaled-back Victory Day parade in years. I think that the matter is coming to an end, Putin told reporters of the Russia-Ukraine war, Europe's deadliest conflict since World War II. He also said he would be willing to negotiate new security agreements for Europe and that his preferred negotiating partner would be Germany's former Chancellor Gerhard Schroeder. We'll get more into that in a minute. Chancellor from 1998 to 2005. Putin was speaking in the Kremlin after setting out his view of the causes of the war. He blamed globalist Western leaders, saying they promised NATO would not expand eastward after the 1989 fall of the Berlin Wall, but then tried to draw Ukraine into the European Union's orbit. Where's the lie? His statement came just hours after the parade on May 9th, a national holiday celebrating the Soviet Union's victory over Nazi Germany in World War II. The annual event pays homage to the 27 million Soviet citizens who perished in that war. After Russia and Ukraine accused each other of violating unilateral ceasefires they had each declared over recent days, U.S. President Donald Trump announced from Saturday to Monday that was supported by the Kremlin and Kyiv. The two sides also agreed to exchange 1,000 prisoners. European Council President Antonio Costa said last week he believed there was potential for the EU to negotiate with Russia and to discuss the future of the security architecture of Europe. Asked if he was willing to engage in talks with the Europeans, Putin said the preferable figure for him was Schroeder. Now, we'll get into this in a second. For me personally, the former Chancellor of the Federal Republic of Germany, Mr. Schroeder, is preferable. Just like with a lot of Russiagate, they took that literally. I think it's pretty clear, we'll see from his quote. They didn't really actually mean that, but the press took this quite seriously. Could German ex-leader really negotiate a Ukraine peace? Former German Chancellor Gerhard Schroeder is a controversial, and some critics would even say unserious, choice as a negotiator for the Ukraine war. He's long been criticized for being too close to Russia. He used to rule Germany. Now he oversees Russian energy companies and lashes out at the U.S. This is another one of Schroeder's quote unquote conflicts here. That was an 8-year-old article. But here is Vladimir Putin actually floating the name Gerard Schroeder. As you can see, he gives a little smirk after he says it. Clearly what he means is we want someone who doesn't hate Russia's guts, someone who doesn't want to destroy Russia. It's pretty obvious he did not mean this seriously, yet multiple outlets took him seriously and literally at his word that he literally wanted this Gerard Schroeder to be the mediator or negotiator.
Здравомыслящие политики в Западной Европе, с которыми можно вести диалог.
Для меня лично предпочтительнее бывший канцлер Федеративной Республики Германия господин Шрёдер.
Yeah, see? Look at the little smirk there. Look at the little smile. He's clearly just saying, hey, like, hey, personally, I like the guy who was friendly to me. I like the guy who didn't want to destroy my country. I like the guy who believed it was possible for Europe and Russia to coexist without this NATO expansion, without this constant effort to sabotage our state. That's obviously what he meant. He obviously lived. I mean, just you tell me, audience, does this look like a guy being serious? He literally smirks after he says it. Yeah. So that's obviously what he's getting at there. But, the media, just like they did, in the first Trump term, what did they say? You should take Trump seriously, but not literally. And then some people say you take him literally, but not seriously. What do you think, Garland? You are much better versed on this topic than I am. And so what do you make of Vladimir Putin signaling a willingness to negotiate? And do you have any faith in NATO or the EU to actually see an opportunity to achieve some kind of peace here?
Well, I think with the Schroeder reference, shall we say, I could read it like this. He was saying this crop of people we got now are lunatics, and I can't, you know what I mean? Before the Macrons and the Starmers and the Bojos and the, Kaya Callas, right, there were people like Schroeder who were serious,
Exactly.
And who were professionals. So, yeah, I think I could talk to someone before this current crop of lunatics. I think that's part of it. Now, on this issue, and I think part of this issue, and you hear this from people, and it is kind of goes like that, the Russians are naive. They're so naive. Putin's just so naive, and he always just thinks that somehow that he can talk to the West, but going to Russia, spending time in Russia, interviewing people, they're the most cynical people. I think they're playing a diplomatic game. Based on what I'm saying, I mean, like, if you can find one person in Russia who actually believes what, we can sit down and talk to Kaja Kallas and that group and come up with some kind of a deal. I haven't met them, and I've been, in a number of places in Russia and interviewed a lot of people there. And so what I hear in Russia is even more cynical than the people here, and have less, I don't think they believe that there is a soul that they could talk to that would act in good faith. But I think that Vladimir Putin is a professional statesman, and he's a diplomat. So he's not going to come out and say, yeah, you guys are a bunch of liars and frauds, and I don't believe it. He's going to leave the door open, but he's going to know that he's going to have to punch his way through it. He's going to leave the door open, but he's going to have to look at Iran. What did Iran have to do? You got to punch the bully in the nose, and you got to bloody his nose and blacken his eye, and you've got to demonstrate that you have the kinetic power to defend yourself and to stand up for your rights. And then the bully still ain't going to give up. The empire's not going to give up, but it'll have to back off at a safe distance, right? And so I think that's where the Russians are, in my opinion. They're similar to Iran, and that's really the only way you can deal with this empire that doesn't have the military and economic power to enforce its dictates anymore, but it kind of still thinks it does. And it still has an internal conversation that's going on that's really twisted. It's the internal conversation of the champion, of the powerful person. If you listen to Fox News or MSNBC, if you listen to these members of Congress talking, and you consider that, like, if the empire was a person, this voice that's going on in your head, and oftentimes a person who's like really mentally ill, the voice is really screwed up inside of their head, right? The schizophrenic person. That's what that voice inside of the head of this person that's the empire is Fox News. It is CBS News. It is members of Congress. And when you listen to them, it's still, we are the powerful superpower of 1995. And we cannot accept that we're not. And so what's happening is, I think, whether it's from Iran to China to, Russia, they are figuring out how to deal with the contradiction, between the conversation that's going on and the actual ability, because between that is the use of nuclear weapons. It's okay, we're going to tell you what to do and you say no, and we have no other way to do it, but maybe we could throw a nuke at you or something. So it's, how do we manage? I think it's this, I'll put it like this, shorten it up. With all of them, it's all one conversation. How do we manage the rapid decline of an empire in a way that doesn't cause them to freak out and start throwing nuclear weapons?
That makes a lot of sense. And oddly enough, I mean, and I've said this before, when you look in Trump's first term at the way he was red-baited and Russia-gated and the way he emphasized the importance of good relations with Russia, the way he expressed a certain respect for China, even though the Republican Party was quite hawkish towards China and still are. Trump, as recently as a month and a half ago, something says, you got to admit the system kind of works, and in the first term, his diplomatic gestures towards North Korea, it seemed to me like there was some hope that perhaps Trump could bring the empire in for a softer landing, which that's how I interpret what you just said as, hey, let's see how we can manage the decline of this empire without violence, without, just the kind of violence that typically accompanies the end of empire. And certainly now it seems as though that was a false hope, as we're just getting war after war and project after project. But when you go 3 steps back and you look, okay, so Putin said it right there. He said they expected the Russian state to fall within months, and we're still here. Now, Syria did fall. Iran is still standing. That seemed to be the trilogy in the order of operations from the standpoint of the empire. So how did this go compared to how you think they felt it would? In, let's just say, I don't know, let's estimate a date, November 2021.
I would say probably better than they would think, that they would have thought, for this reason, because they've been able to, and I'm not saying it's intentional, so this is the way it's worked, gradually defang the empire, particularly militarily, or you could argue it gradually defanged itself by being, overstretched and having, neoliberal industrial policies, which means you can't build anything right. And everything that you build is going to be nothing but a money laundering operation, including your weapons. So I think that some of it, or most of it, might have been, unplanned, but you see the Ukraine conflict being a slow conflict that the plan was, we're going to use, we're going to drain the power and money and military might of Russia. And of course it backfired and it's draining ours. And now Iran, we're going to punch Iran, and everything that we wanted to do to Iran is backfiring on us. So I think thus far, I would have to argue it's probably going well, because now the empire is getting to a point where, the idea that we're going to go over there and fight China, dude, we just got our butt kicked by Iran. You know what I mean? Like a war against China would last hours.
Right.
Hours. Everything would just be, and now the world knows too, that, one of the things that that's interesting is, a big part of U.S. imperialism militarily was, we're going to surround you with bases, and then we're going to bring them closer and closer, and then we're going to put military hardware on your, right on your border, and we're going to point everything at you, and we're going to choke you out. You've heard salami slicing, you've heard the boa constrictor, all of these various metaphors, but that was it, right? And what Iran has proven is that thing is done, because Iran's missile capability, pales in comparison to that of, say, a Russia or a China, right? So now what everybody knows is those bases are dead meat. Any war you get into, an hour or two, and they're all gone. So you can't choke anybody out with bases. What are you going to do? And I think the U.S. is fumbling. You know what's interesting? To watch the U.S. fumble for a weapon. Okay, but we can still take them out. Maybe sanctions. Ah, crap. Okay, you know what I mean? Tariffs. Darn that one. It's like they're fumbling for a weapon to dominate, and they can't find one.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. All right, we're going to move right on along here. Just got to take a quick pause here, take care of a little bit of business. So, quick question for you all. How much control do you actually have over your money right now? Well, technology has changed everything, and now it's changing the way money works. And Rumble is part of the new economy, which means you, as a Rumble viewer, can get started, and it's much easier than you think. Rumble Wallet comes in at this point. With Rumble Wallet, you can buy Bitcoin, hold dollar-backed stablecoins, and even own digital gold backed by real gold, all in one place. Setup is simple. It connects with MoonPay, so you can use your debit card, credit card, or bank account and be up and running in minutes. And once you're set up, you can even tip your favorite Rumble creators like us directly. It's a great way to support the free speech creator economy and a great way to support your favorite individual creators. Rumble Wallet, of course, takes zero platform fees, so we keep nearly 100% of what you send us. The interface is simple and user-friendly. Sending a Rumble rant through your Rumble Wallet is just as easy as when you do it the old-fashioned way. So get started now. Scan the QR code or click the link in the description and download Rumble Wallet. From there, you can set up your wallet, tap buy, and you are in the game. So take control of your money and help support our free speech creator economy here on the internet. Get started with the Rumble Wallet today by scanning the QR code or going to wallet.rumble.com. You can also search Rumble Wallet in the App Store. Super quick, super easy. Shout out to Rumble for creating this disruptive technology to support the creator economy. Okay, let's move right on along here. Ravid Laz says Miriam Adelson also sent Trump a threat via text, a pic of a 15-inch toy. Reading, shall we continue our efforts from Iran, or would you like more hemorrhoids and not being able to sit for a few days? Thank you, Ravid Laz. Always bangers from Ravid Laz. Andy Gardner, CBS and Netanyahu. It's Mother's Day of the century. That's right. Happy Mother's Day to all the dissident moms out there, by the way. Meant to say that at the top of the show. Shout out to all the dissident moms for sure. This is my first Mother's Day without my mother here, so shout out to my mother. But then to my wife, you're the best mother there is. So thank you to Amanda. Shout out to her. Happy Mother's Day. Andy Gardner, CBS and Netanyahu got that one. Thank you. Dino, in 6 months, China installed more solar than the U.S. has in its entire history. Thank you, Dino. Back from the road says Cuba won't fall like that. They have lived under sanctions forever. They have motivated and armed people. Add in thousands of Latin freedom fighters who will join, and Russian nuke subbed there now. Yeah, they've been talking a lot of shit about Cuba, but they haven't tried anything yet. I don't know. I don't know what they're waiting for. Any opinion on that, Garland? Why
they're
Cuba
busy right now. I think they're a little busy right now.
A little busy.
Tied down. They're a little tied down, losing two wars at the same again, two catastrophic losses at the same time. Trump actually said, "Oh yeah, when we get finished with Iran, when we get finished with Iran, we're going to Cuba's next. We're going to take care of Cuba."
Yeah. Yep. Just a little backed up. Did you have to connect to the internet and agree to the EULA to use the new razor? My new razor is a I went with the Philips. I went with the Philips Norelco. That's the Philips Norelco razor. Will Iran include Palestine? Oh, look at that. Dark Matter Zombie. Landrew. Thanks for the $100, Landrew. That is very kind of you. Let's give you a cowbell here. Soundboard does not cooperate with me. So, Jake, if you could find that would be incredible. But in the meantime, let's answer Landrew's question. Thank you for that, my friend. Will Iran include Palestine in its agreement to end this war? We are all Palestinian now. Free Palestine. What do you think, Bart?
Landrew is dead. Well, number one, there's just no possibility of getting like a deal. You can't get a deal when one of the parties is not operating in good faith and doesn't have the capacity to operate in good faith. So in an agreement to end the war, there could never be an agreement to end this war as far as there could be defeat or something like this, but the U.S. cannot get an agreement. They're still lying about why they're doing it. It's not about nukes, and they're still. So how can you get an agreement when you can't even? It's like people trying to iron out their problems. Like a husband and wife are at a therapist, and they're talking about why they disagree and this and that and the things they don't get along, and the wife won't tell the therapist it's because he gained 100 pounds since I married him and I think he's gross now. Right. But you can't say that to the therapist, because the therapist will be like, hey, you married him for better or worse or whatever. So instead you can't fix things if you can't get to the reality of why they're doing it. So no agreements.
So he doesn't think there'll be any in terms of them making that a sticking point. It's funny, we haven't really heard much reporting. I mean, we haven't really heard too much in terms of reporting about the specifics of the deal that they're supposedly ironing out. But you seem to be of the opinion that they're just not going to stop until Iran is gone. And if that's not going to happen, then that is a very, very bleak forecast, because really the alternative is that this balloons into a global conflict at some point. What do you think about that?
Well, I think the other part of it is this, that the pain at home, it will cause the U.S. to at least have to disengage in some way, shape, or form, because man, we haven't even begun what's going to happen in a month or two when it really gets bad here, and it goes from anger to fury to rage, and then we're going to be in primary season, and the rage starts to play out in political instability, and the U.S. is going to have to find a way to disengage, which still is kind of impossible because all this talk about walk away. Well, I think it's important to say, let's say the U.S. says, well, we'll just walk away then. Well, wait a minute. We have tens, if not hundreds of billions worth of dollars worth of damage in Kuwait and all these other places to their oil and gas infrastructure that has to be fixed, right? Can you start fixing it if you don't have some kind of an agreement that Iran won't just blow it the hell back up again in 2 months when the war starts? No, you can't. So if the U.S. just walks away and there's no agreement and there's no security infrastructure, whatever you want to call it, right? Nobody can really rebuild any of their oil and gas infrastructure, because banks wouldn't even lend them the money to do it, because we're gonna go back to war in 6 months and blow it the hell up again. So what a mess, man.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. Let's go to another one here. I shouldn't have to do this. Says Keaton, you should check out the new song Big Shop of Horrors by Highly Suspect. Very angry rock song calling out Israel for the war and genocide in Gaza. I was impressed. Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. Always looking for new recommendations. Thank you very much. El Casador, Keaton, have you gotten a code word to make sure you're getting the right Russell? Russell's on the plane right now. Russell lands in New York in a little over 3 hours. 14-hour flight. Race car, thanks for the super sticker. Appreciate that very much, my friend. By the way, I'll email you a tracking number when it's sent. Thanks, Vienticus. Vienticus is sending me his book. I could teach my kids how to do something useful with their lives in this new age of AI. How do you organize a party in space? You plan it. Good one. Kenman says, Garland Nixon is the most base Nixon ever. Better than Cynthia, much better than Richard. Thank you, Kenman. Appreciate that very much. All right, let's move right on along here. All right, this was a big one. This was a big story here. AOC throwing some shade at Marjorie Taylor Greene when she was asked what she feels about Marjorie Taylor Greene's stance on Israel and Palestine. And here is AOC's answer. Full mean girl mode here.
And I care about results. I care about results. Now, there are certain certain areas where I don't think that we should ignore some folks' record on some of these issues, right? It's about where we trust intent, where we trust where those outcomes are going. I personally do not trust someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene, a proven bigot and anti-Semite, on the issues of what is good for Gazans and Israelis. I don't think that it benefits our movement in that instance to align the left with white nationalists. I don't think it serves us. And so I think it's about looking at the context, the place, the results, the outcomes, intentions, and where we think that train would go. But as far as what someone says about me, I could care less.
Well, where that train would go. You sound like an anti-Semite there yourself. What do you mean? What does that mean, where that train would go? Sounds like an anti-Semitic comment from AOC. So much here. First of all, they're not Gazans. They are Palestinians. This is something that a lot of people on Twitter picked up on. Second of all, talk about a Zionist talking point. She's an anti-Semite. Yeah, she's an anti-Semite because of these comments on Israel-Palestine, or maybe not particularly. Is she talking about the space lasers? Hey, listen, I don't know how Marjorie Taylor Greene found out about those fucking space lasers. My suspicion is that, you know, when somebody asked her name and she said Green, they let her go. They didn't realize it was Green with an E on the end. They thought it was just Green. So they let her into the lab, and somehow she found out about those goddamn space lasers. I'm still a little pissed off about that myself. But third, look at where she is. To me, the forum says everything. If you just look at the Chiron, Ocasio-Cortez and former Obama advisor David Axelrod speak out about challenges and opportunities facing U.S. This is the Institute of Politics. What is she there to do? She is there to intertwine herself with the very democratic establishment that she was supposed to overturn when she ran in 2018. Garland, any response to any of that so far? We got some more on this.
How do you respond to somebody who's talking about intentions and outcomes? So, you know what I mean? It's about context. It's about, I mean, like, she can talk for 5 minutes and never say anything of any value. So it's like, I listen to it and I'm like, that's what the Democratic Party is now. You know, something behind her, I see powering. I know that means empowering. You know, there's certain words they use. They're empowering people. It's intentions. It's outcome. It's creating a certain kind of space. So they just like use all of these talking points that don't really mean anything, that sound smart though. You know what I mean? They sound like a real intellectual and intelligent person is saying it. When you get down to it and you're like, what does it really mean? There's nothing there. And that's her. She does not impress me intellectually. She does not impress me politically. She's not a particular astute and sharp politician. You know, Obama was a guy who, I mean, he was nothing but a puppet for Wall Street, but listen, to guy, he was sharp as nails, right? He was quick on his feet. He was a brilliant guy. I mean, in an evil kind of way, right? And then you listen to Kamala Harris and these people, and they're just people that are trying to sound smart and to trying to use the right phrases, the right words that are acceptable in their group. And so it's like, how do we say stuff that sounds smart without really saying anything? And she's not even good at that. She has to think. You know what I mean? Well, she can't go, well, blah, 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 blah. She goes, and context is intentions, outcomes. You know, she's always constantly searching for words.
Well, that's part of trying to ingratiate yourself with mainstream liberals, because they're the most self-satisfied people in the world. They think the longer you filibuster like that, the smarter you actually are. That's their whole ethos in a nutshell. It's just how cleverly can you say nothing? But I think also this preoccupation, I don't trust Marjorie Taylor Greene. What does that mean, you don't trust her? What, you think she's going to swipe your parking pass on Capitol Hill? What does that mean? Like, I don't even know what that means. Is she doing the right thing? Is she saying the right thing? Is she acting on the right thing or not? This whole idea that you have to be friends with somebody or you have to ally with someone across the board is, to me, just very juvenile, to be honest. Like the same thing when Joe Kent resigned and said Iran was not a threat,
essentially. This is bullshit. This isn't what I signed up for. I said, you know what? That's a heroic act. People say, well, I don't trust Joe Kent. I think he's a... So what if you don't trust him? Did he do something good or did he not? Period. Did Marjorie Taylor Greene do a good thing by partnering with Ro Khanna on the Epstein files? I think you could say unequivocally that was a great thing, because without a few Republicans breaking, none of that would have happened. Don't forget, the Democrats are still a minority in the House. The only reason they got to 218, which then was about to turn into 420, and unless Donald Trump said, you know what, go ahead and vote for it, is because a few people on the Republican side, Massey and Marjorie Taylor Greene being a couple of them, you know what, took a chance and defied the party, which oddly enough is the thing AOC was never willing to do under Joe Biden. We all know what AOC's big talking point was during the campaign, which was Kamala Harris is working tirelessly for a ceasefire. Okay, so Marjorie Taylor Greene was willing to actually bring the ruckus that AOC promised to bring. Don't forget, AOC ran and said you can't be afraid to be a one-term congressperson. Well, Marjorie Taylor Greene wasn't quite a one-term congresswoman, but she actually lived up to that far more than AOC did. She's like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm doing this. I'm going out on a limb here, and if it costs me my seat, it cost me my seat. And that was a chance that AOC, for all her talk, was never willing to take, which is why she's there wooing David Axelrod in the first place. So here were a few of the responses here. Jason Kishinev, dear AOC, Marjorie Taylor Greene speaks for me regarding Israel and Palestine, signed a left-wing Californian Jew. So AOC says Michael Ravels calls Marjorie Taylor Greene a bigot, yet AOC uses the dehumanizing term Gazans when talking about Palestinians in Gaza. The nerve. Asian girl, Bronx leftist. So, according to AOC, joining forces on stock trading is okay. Calling out genocide is meh and good for Israelis. That's the other thing. She says, I don't think it's good for Israelis or Gazans. What the actual fuck would she have been whining about what's good for Germans in World War II? Yet more evidence that AOC is not trustworthy on Gaza or Israel or at all. I agree. Now, if you listen to someone like Ilhan Omar when asked a similar question, here's her response, kind of different.
Very fascinating, especially about Marjorie and Candace, is that they are not just coming out like the other ones that you'd mentioned, where they're saying this action is wrong, right? They're saying, I am done with you. We should give them credit for that.
I think I trust Marjorie Taylor Greene more than AOC at this point. She's definitely fighting Trump harder. I'm 50 and never voted GOP in my life, AOC, says big emoji guy. Glenn Greenwald puts it, AOC is right that there are important differences between her and Marjorie Taylor Greene. AOC emphatically condemns policies only when Trump and the GOP do them, gets muted and deferential when Dems do. By contrast, MTG criticizes policies with equal fervor regardless, of which party does them. MTG condemns GOP leaders when they betray their purported values, even risking her political career to do so. By contrast, AOC lies to protect Dems who betray their supposed values. Kamala is working tirelessly for a ceasefire in Gaza and has supreme devotion to partisan advancement and self-interest above all. Number 3, Marjorie Taylor Greene introduced a bill to cut all U.S. financing of Israel's military. AOC voted no, arguing Americans should pay for Israel's, quote, defensive weapons. Big substantive difference. Yes, which Marjorie Taylor Greene pointed out herself. MTG scorns the AIPAC ADL tactic of accusing Israel critics of being racist and anti-Semitic. AOC embraces and fortifies that accusatory smear campaign to justify why only liberal critics like her are compassionate and legitimate and everyone else is just racist. Number 5, Marjorie Taylor Greene only cares about results and outcomes and will thus work with anyone to stop a policy she considers evil and wrong. AOC only cares about posturing in her political branding, not outcomes, and will thus reject opportunity to form majorities to stop some policy evil if it means admitting that not only Dems have good ideas and can be good people. AOC is the embodiment of privilege, Greenwald writes, having no real urgency about stopping things that don't personally affect her. like Israeli wars and U.S. financing of them. That's why she has harsher words for GOP critics of Israel than she does for Dem supporters of Israel. Very good point. Very, very good point. This and more is why MTG was pushed out of her own party, while AOC has fully morphed into Nancy Pelosi Jr. and is one of the Democratic Party's most valuable partisan tools, and why she's beloved by Dems as such. And if you needed any further proof of what Greenwald's talking about, here's Neera Tanden, Bernie hater in chief. Neera Tanden, remember her? I have said for years this guy is a nut, meaning Glenn Greenwald, and another piece of evidence is his attack on one of the most prominent social democrats in America. All of a sudden, Neera Tanden, big social democrat, huh? To support Marjorie Taylor Greene, who voted with Trump 95% of the time. Unbelievably dumb. So the reason Ilhan Omar, I think, can give some credit to Marjorie Taylor Greene and actually extend somewhat of an olive branch to try and build some kind of coalition is twofold. One, I think, as a Muslim, I think she probably feels this a little stronger than AOC does. But two, and this is to me the big one. This is the big one. Ilhan Omar is not American born, which means she cannot run for president, and she has no intention of running for president. This is all about AOC running for president. That is what this is. That's why she's in the room with David Axelrod in the first place. It's why she's courting people like Neera Tanden. It's why she cannot have a good thing to say about Marjorie Taylor Greene, because that is poison to the rich Democrat donors who she thinks are going to fund her campaign. That's where I think she's coming from. I think this is entirely about AOC thinking she's going to run for president and she needs to make the right people comfortable with her. What do you think about that?
I'm 100%. You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say the same thing. You could call it cultish behavior in a way. Okay, the Democratic Party, if you call it a cult, if you call it a group, whatever you call it, right? They have a set of enemies. And Marjorie Taylor Greene is one, Putin is one. You can name who.
Right,
if you're a loyal Democratic establishment person, here's the list of enemies. What's interesting is one of your list of friends is Liz Cheney. So Liz Cheney's fine. Marjorie Taylor Greene, bad, right? So you're right. She's simply sending the messages out. It's like sometimes when Trump says things and everybody like, that's crazy, that's going to piss the Iranians off. And we're like, no, he's actually talking to the people inside of the Beltway. You know what I mean? He's not talking to the Iranians or the rest of the world. He's speaking to the people inside of the Beltway, right? Oftentimes, when you look at these kinds of conversations, as you said, this person's running for president. She's talking to the donors. She's talking to the people inside of the party that she wants to support her. She's reminding them, look, we got a list of enemies. I hate them all, and I'm never going to say a positive word about them ever, ever, ever. I will play by the rules exactly as you need me to play by the rules. So give me your money and support me so I can become president. I'm with you. I'm thinking the same exact thing the whole time.
Yeah.
Seems obvious after a while, isn't it?
Yeah, it seems pretty obvious. Because that's one thing that Ilhan Omar doesn't have to worry about. And so she's freer to just speak her mind in that way. She can't be president. She's not running for it. She's, in her district there. So she can say that. AOC can't. A historic turn on CNN, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Ro Khanna form an alliance against the Washington establishment. So here is Marjorie Taylor Greene talking about partnering with Ro Khanna, who also seems like he's angling for a run at the presidency, but taking a bit of a different tack.
Here, I want to talk tonight about the reason why we're having this discussion is Ro Khanna and I both are willing to say that the current center of right and left that have been coming together for decades have failed Americans. And Ro and I, just like he said, we're completely different. I'm unapologetically pro-life. I'm against the trans agenda on children. I'm against the Green New Deal. I'm for very secure borders and a strong economy and a smaller government. But the current center, right, and left that coalition in America have got us in $40 trillion in debt. and debt, have funded foreign war after foreign war after foreign war, and now funding another one, and they will be, and we don't know how long this will go. And it's gotten to a point where Americans can't afford life, Caitlin. And so Ro and we exchanged comments on social media saying that we recognize how for the left and the right to come together and find issues that we can work together on. But Ro and I did that on the Epstein files, and it was incredibly important. And there's also issues such as funding foreign governments that we share that in common. And we know this is that Americans are going in. So I think this is an important conversation worth having.
Yeah, so to me, like, that is so clearly the better strategy. First of all, it's the more pro-human point of view to take, which is, hey, you know, on an issue as important as the Epstein files, or on an issue as important as a genocide in Gaza or World War III, we are going to form partnerships where we can. Doesn't mean we're forming permanent alliances. Doesn't mean we love each other. Doesn't mean we trust each other. Doesn't mean we're friends with each other. Means we are going to add what political power we have together to make as big an impact as possible on issues that are very important where we happen to have common ground. There's something very nihilistic about AOC's approach, which is, well, no, you can be right on this when more than half of my party, forget about more than half, 90% of my party is wrong on this. And Marjorie Taylor Greene's right on this, but no, I'm going to push her away and court David Axelrod and court Neera Tanden, court the very people who at the very best have turned a blind eye to the horrors in Gaza over the past few years. There's something, like I said, just very bleak about your worldview if you consider that the appropriate tactic as opposed to what Ro Khanna is doing. And hey, man, I got tons of criticism for Ro Khanna. Ro Khanna, more than anybody else, is probably the reason I dem exited. Because when Ro Khanna in 2021 gave the bullshit excuse for going back on the promise to hold out for the Build Back Better, well, we took a leap of faith that Joe Biden would deliver the votes. That's like, all right, so you were never actually negotiating. I'm out. So I got nothing but criticism for Ro Khanna. But hey, this is kind of the point, right? As much as I have criticisms of Ro Khanna, I can give him props for reaching across the aisle when it's important. You can't say the same for AOC.
Well, yeah, and it's kind of like, I mean, if you think of it like a Democrat, a Republican, and whatever we'll call an independent person wash ashore on a desert island. And the independent says the Democrat and Republic, you know, guys, if we work together, I think we can all survive.
Right.
And they're like, you don't expect me to work with the you're going to die. You got to work together. There's going to be wild animals. You got to find food. No, you'd rather die. You'd rather everything bad. You're not even looking out for your own safety. And in this instance, you know, it gets obvious that this is about the party, that this is the problem. You know, that AOC's like, okay, what I have to do is what I have to do and say, and the positions I have to take are about maintaining the integrity of my position in the party so I can advance myself, right? But yet there are people out here saying, well, we have issues as citizens that we want our government to address. And AOC's nowhere in that conversation where she called, you know, this person's a bigot, they're a racist, they're a white nationalist, use all the words that you need to use, right? But nowhere in her conversation was anything about people are struggling and we need to do something about this. It's important that we need to address the problems of the people, that we need to represent the people. I've been listening to her, you know, babble, and, you know, you heard her foreign policy speech overseas, babble and talk to the people in the party. But if you notice, she doesn't. And for all my complaints about Marjorie Taylor Greene, she'll say, people can't afford their rent. People can't afford their this. People can't afford the schools. Or she will actually say something about the people out here, about the so-called, you know, constituents, whatever you want to call them. And I'm not saying that she has the right plan. I'm just saying the AOC class, it seems like it never dawns on them that their job is to work for the people out here. It's insular. We're all together. We've gotten together. We've come up. We decide how things should happen. And with them, actually, if you listen to AOC, it's really not even about the outcome. It's all about the process. It's all about ensuring that you operate within the context of the process of this thing, never even really worrying that much. I don't even talk about the outcome machine produces. It's just make sure that you operate in the way the machine wants it should be operated, and the right enemies are the right enemies.
Yeah. Well, perfect segue into this final part of the segment here. Max Blumenthal pointed this out. So if you remember this was back in 2019. Ocasio-Cortez, Ted Cruz, and other lawmakers urge NBA to suspend activity in China. Talk about the right enemies, right? So Max Blumenthal points out AOC will not team up with Marjorie Taylor Greene to sanction Israel because of identity politics, but she teamed up with Ted Cruz and Tom Cotton to call for more sanctions on China. So talk about what you were just saying, how she knows who the right enemies are, right? At the end of the day, she knows the line she can't cross. Even when it comes to the voting, I guess, former Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene tweets, AOC refused to vote for my amendment to strip funding for Israel. She can run her mouth all she wants, but votes are the only thing that matters, not a bunch of words and nasty name calling. Yep. I agree. And I didn't even know about this, actually. This was back in 2019. Or if I did, I had forgotten about this. Did you have this in your mind? I didn't even know that.
Oh, yeah, I did know about the NBA because I had a friend who coached in China for a Chinese basketball team, believe it or not. And we had discussed that. It was pretty interesting stuff, actually, the whole Chinese basketball league stuff. I found it. Did you know in a Chinese basketball league, at the beginning of they can only have like 2 Americans on their team. This was in 2019 anyway. They could have 2 Americans on their team. And in the fourth quarter, I think it was only one of them could play, and they had to declare at the beginning of the game which one of them could play, because obvious, basketball has been here a long time, not there, and Americans would all come over and dominate, right? But yeah, but I'm just throwing that in there. But yeah, and the thing about it was, there was people there love basketball, so there was a huge opening for the NBA to go over there, and it would be good. You know what I mean? People see an American sport, maybe there could be friendship. The old bring the people together kind of thing. And I think the government looked at it. That's what he said. They looked at it, and they're like, the Chinese people love basketball, and they wanted more Americans on their teams, and they wanted Americans to come over and play games like we do in the NFL and Beijing and what have you. And the powers that be saw that as a problem, because what do you know? Americans will start associating with Chinese people, and they'll like them, and they won't want to go to war with them.
Right.
And there's Tom Cotton and AOC saying, "Oh my God, you can't do anything that would get in the way of our war with China, for God's sake."
Right. Exactly. All right, we got 2016 in the YouTube chat. Go for one of these. All right, now I'm going to freak out Garland Nixon because we have 768 likes. That is the last Keaton Weiss headbang, by the way. Russell will be taking it over his rightful spot on Thursday. So for those who joined the program late, no show Tuesday because I got to be moved out of my old apartment. And there's just no time to do it but this week, and Amanda's working a couple days, so no show Tuesday, which means this is the last show without Russell Dobular for a very long time. So he will be back. For all of those who wonder, where's Russell? He'll be back. But we got Garland for tonight's. Garland Nixon. Make sure you follow him on YouTube, follow him on Twitter, and everywhere else. Where else are you? You're on. Do you have a Substack?
Yeah, I have a Substack.
Okay, good.
And in fact, yes, I have a Substack. But and you can find me on Telegram, and of course at the Garland Nixon, THE Garland Nixon on X, not the other at Garland Nixon. That's also mine, and I also pay for it, and it also has a blue check mark. Like I have 2 blue check marks.
That's right.
One of them is at Garland Nixon, one of them is at the Garland Nixon. But I just can't use the one or access the one that says at Garland Nixon, because according to Twitter, they can't verify me as the owner, but they can take my money for verification.
Yeah, I was wondering why that, because your old Twitter has like almost 200,000 followers.
Yeah, imagine that.
Yeah, crazy.
That was in 2023. I had 120,000 followers, and they sent me an email. Now they sent me an email, right? at Garland Nixon. They send an email to garlandin@gmail.com. And the first email says, you may be having problems. We are having some problems with perhaps, miscreant activity in your account. And could you create a new password? And I'm like, sure. I went to create a new password. It locked me out. And then they send an email that says, sorry, we can't verify you as the owner of the account. Well, why the hell are you sending an email to at Garland in? You're taking money from the bank account of Garland Nixon, and the name of the handle of the Twitter account is at Garland Nixon, but you can't figure out who owns it. Anyway.
Yeah, no, there's no rhyme and reason to any of that. There's no rhyme and reason to any of that. That is big tech for you right there, for sure. All right, El Casador. Didn't Biden tell Putin Russia is no longer a superpower? And Putin's response was that Russia might not be, but they will anoint the next superpower. I think that is China. Yeah, that seems about right to me. Tusker, hey Tusker. Thanks for the $20. Tusker says, hey Keaton, hey Garland. Been looking forward to this collab for quite a while. Yes, so have I. So have I. Thank you, Tusker. David Santucci says Putin might be a good statesman, but if the Schroeder thing was supposed to be a joke, it really didn't land. You should offer him your coaching services, Keaton. And great to see Garland on. I'm a big fan. Thank you, David Santucci. I think Garland was right. Like, yeah, he meant it kind of jokingly, but to make a point. We're like, hey, remember when European leaders were not like murderous and insane in the way that this crop is? Yeah, I want one of those to talk to. I think that's what he was talking about.
I think so, too. It was like these people are totally and completely incompetent. I mean, Tanya Callas, you look at her, and there's something really weird going on there, and it ain't good. She's like, the old Nazi Barbie thing going on.
Yeah, exactly. French Laundry, thanks for the $4.99 and the $1.99. Thanks, French Laundry. El Casador says you can always Kurt Metzger to interrogate the Russell that comes back to make sure he has not been CCP Ultra. Yeah, that's true. Can have him go down to Texas first before I have him back on. Riff Site, thanks for the $2. Love from Wales. No, Russ is going to do a whole report on, his experiences. I won't spoil anything, but Russell was really, I think, most in love with Vietnam. He really, really loved Vietnam. That seems to have been his favorite, but obviously had a great time everywhere. Vienticus Prime, AOC is looking AO chunky. Hey, come on. She's a lady over there. Kevin G, Keaton, instead of using those cheap electric razors, have you considered trying Jewish space lasers? They really get under the follicle. Yeah, but then it won't grow back. That's the problem with that. That's the problem. I need it to be able to grow back. I like facial hair, just not all the time. Okay, let's move right on along here. Okay, so Garland, I loved your take on the Hantavirus. This is kind of a psyop within it. This is like one of them double psyops, kind of. So Garland Nixon tweets out, the Garland Nixon, not to be confused with the unverifiable Garland Nixon. The Garland Nixon tweets, breaking news, White House insiders leak that while reviewing his current poll numbers with staff, President Trump suddenly pulled out a coin, turned to VP Vance, and shouted, heads we go with aliens and tails the virus pandemic. Call it in the air. Yeah, I think you're on to something there. So here is Acting CDC Director Jay Bhattacharya on the hantavirus outbreak. This was yesterday.
COVID, and the CDC, this is again not like COVID, and the CDC has been working very closely with our international partners, our state and local partners. We have a team on the ground that's going to help these 17 Americans, bring them back to a facility in Nebraska. Had a great call with the governor of Nebraska this morning, and what we'll do, it will be a self-isolation. None of these folks have any symptoms at all. We're going to have them isolate for about 42 days. That's what the literature says. We've handled outbreaks like this before. I think in 2018 there was an outbreak in the United States. My message to the American people is, please don't worry. This is not one of those things like COVID where there's 15 different alarm bells. And the CDC team that is tracking this is absolutely amazing. We've been working with the partners across the government. They've been doing an incredible job, Rachel.
All right. Well, here's Donald Trump saying should be fine. I hope it doesn't spread.
Mr. President, I'm also with
on the virus?
Yes, I have.
Can you tell us what you learned in these briefings?
Well, I think you're going to be told everything, and you already have. It's very much, we hope, under control. It was the ship, and I think we're going to make a full report about it tomorrow. We have a lot of people, a lot of great people studying it. It should be fine. We hope.
Should Americans be concerned that it's going to spread? And how are you
I hope
working
not.
to get
I
those
mean, I hope
Americans
not. We'll do the
home?
best we can, yeah.
To get the Americans that are on the ship home.
Do the best we can. All right, here he is. Will you reconsider leaving the WHO because of the Hantavirus?
I'd like to see a big extension. Okay? Will your team travel to Moscow, Mr. President?
Consider leaving the World Health Organization because of the outbreak of Hantavirus.
No, we seem to have things under very good control. They know that virus very well. It's been around a long time. Not easily transferable, unlike COVID. But we'll see. We're studying it very closely. We have very good people studying it very closely.
All right, so let's see where we were at with this Hantavirus here. Hantavirus-ridden MV Honius cruise ship anchors in Canary Islands after deadly outbreak as passengers evacuate. The Hantavirus-stricken HV Honius, is it HV or MV? That must have been their typo. I thought it was the MV Honius.
It's supposed to be motor vessel, right?
Yeah, motor vessel. Yeah, HV
But now
Honius.
this is
That sounds like a
Hantavirus
new
vessel.
car. Yeah.
Hantavirus vessel. They changed it.
Oh, okay. The HV Honius, the Hantavirus Honius. The Hantavirus vessel. Yeah, that sounds like a new car, the HV Honius. The HV Honius 2026. Anchored in Spain Sunday morning after the outbreak on the ship left 3 travelers dead and sparked global concern over a possible wider spread of the rodent-borne illness. The plagued Dutch cruise ship reached Tenerife. Is that how you say that? I don't even know how to say that name. That's what I'm going with. The Canary Islands' largest island, around 6:30 a.m. local time, as more than 140 passengers and crew started to disembark from the vessel. All the passengers remain asymptomatic, Spain's health minister Monica Garcia said during a Sunday morning news conference. The entire operation is proceeding normally. Fears among locals have surged in recent days ahead of the doomed ship's arrival, but WHO officials said the public risk is low and they're closely monitoring the situation. 17 American travelers will fly back to the U.S. on a repatriation flight and be taken to the National Quarantine Unit in Nebraska for assessment and quarantine, the U.S. State Department said. The UK will also send a plane to evacuate its citizens who will all be required to isolate for 45 days upon return. The weeks-long Atlantic cruise, which departed from Argentina on March 20th, spiraled into a nightmare when an elderly Dutch couple carried the rare Andes strain of the virus after contracting it in Argentina last month. So this wasn't a cruise ship with rat shit on it. Apparently, they got the virus in Argentina by walking around a landfill to go bird watching. That's apparently where it came from. The husband died aboard the expedition vessel. His wife came down with symptoms after getting off on the island of St. Helena and flying to South Africa, where she died. So, in terms of the United States, evacuation of passengers from Hantavirus-stricken cruise ship begins in Tenerife. Passengers started evacuating the cruise ship at the center of a deadly Hantavirus outbreak on Sunday, shortly after the vessel arrived off the Spanish island of Tenerife, beginning the process of sending them back to their home countries. The first group of passengers wearing face masks and head-to-toe personal protective equipment were kept strictly secluded from members of the public as a small boat brought them ashore. A medical tent was set up ready to receive passengers across what is expected to be a 2-day operation at the island's Granadilla port, with buses on hand to take them to the airport, where countries have arranged special flights to take them home. The first plane carrying 14 Spanish passengers departed Tenerife on Sunday for the Spanish capital, Madrid. Dr. Boris Pavlin, a WHO medical epidemiologist, told NBC News the operation had been extremely efficient. Passengers have been coming off the ship on boats in small numbers, placed on buses and spaced apart, just to make sure that even though all of them are asymptomatic, they have no symptoms right now, that they don't present any new additional risk to each other, he said. So they're social distancing on the vehicles, I guess. This is not COVID, he asked. In COVID, we've all been traumatized by how people you didn't even think were sick were already spreading it, but we have no reason to believe that that's happening here. The 17 Americans still aboard the Honius will be flown to the United States and will be observed at the National Quarantine Unit, a facility on the University of Nebraska Medical Center campus in Omaha that specializes in handling patients with highly hazardous communicable diseases, the medical center said. People get hantavirus through contact with rodents, especially when exposed to their urine, droppings, and saliva. The origin of the first case suggests possible exposure to rodents during bird watching activities, the WHO said. So here's the patient zero that RT tweets out. He and wife visited a massive landfill full of trash in Argentina while bird watching, both now dead. Yeah, you get it from vaporized rat shit. Like if you are close to rat shit and that gets aerosolized and you inhale it, that is how it can infect you. It's extraordinarily rare. There have been fewer than 900 cases in the United States over the last 30 years. So it's a very, very difficult disease to catch. Of the group of viruses, only the Andes, the strain in the Honius case, is known to spread between people, but those people usually have very close contact with each other, according, once again, to the WHO. So here is Bhattacharya on CNN this morning being interviewed further about the steps that they're taking.
The cruise ship after the first passenger died, I believe on April 10th, or April 11th, rather. Those 7 have already returned to the U.S. You noted that they're in 5 states, Arizona, California, Georgia, Texas, Virginia. Now, I'm told that it can take up to 6 weeks for somebody who was exposed to hantavirus to begin to show symptoms. So that is about 4 weeks ago. So they're not technically out of the woods yet. There's still 2 weeks left. When did you begin monitoring these 7? Do any of them have any symptoms?
Well, I think it's, we first learned about the CDC roughly the time they started to come home, I think maybe 3 weeks ago. I'd have to look the exact dates up, Jake, but it's, I've been tracking the situation. The CDC teams have been tracking the situation for a while now. As I said, we're in close contact with the state and local public health agencies for protocols for managing these patients, including contact tracing, regular check-ins, symptoms checks. And if there's any like symptoms that develop, protocols for getting them to care rapidly and testing them. So it's been basically the whole time, I think. It's been interesting to, again, it's interesting to watch a lot of the thinking around this is colored, I think, by the COVID experience in the press. But the protocols that we have followed are more in line with the normal hantavirus protocols that, again, were followed in 2018 in the United States.
Which seems to be consistent with what the WHO is saying. This is why I'm calling this kind of a double psyop, because it seems like, Garland, as you said at the beginning, this is really about, finding an issue if you're Donald Trump that you're on comfortable footing with the base on. And I'll get more into what I mean in just a moment. I want to just get through some of this. So WHO Director General Tedros, we're not even going to try that name, all due respect. We're going to call him Tedros AG, told Tenerife residents that the docking of a cruise ship hit by a hantavirus outbreak does not pose the risk of triggering a COVID-like pandemic. So it's essentially saying what Jay Bhattacharya is saying.
This is not COVID, and we have said it many times as WHO. And when we say this, we don't take it lightly. My message to the people of Tenerife is the risk to the population, to the local population.
Now I sound like a fucking idiot for the first 10 minutes of the clip. Garland, do you mind? Should we re-record the first 10 minutes of this? No, just kidding.
I think we'll be okay with Tenerife.
There we go. You live and learn. Tenerife.
Population is low. One is because of the very nature of the disease itself, but second, the risk is low because the Spanish government has made all the preparations to prevent any problem.
And here he is again. WHO boss Dr. Tedros said it clear when asked about passengers spreading the virus worldwide. He replied, "This is not going to happen."
Thing like COVID, but isn't your presence here suggesting otherwise? Seeing your face on media briefings every day?
it doesn't show that it's because people are concerned, so I have to be with them, while knowing full well that the risk is very low. But when people are concerned, then I have to take it seriously, and I have to be with them to repeat the same message and to support so the operation is successful.
And is there a risk that in 45 days' time, both of you are going to regret not keeping this on the ship, but instead allowing passengers to come onto Spanish soil and then go all over the world and expect themselves to self-isolate? Isn't there a risk you'll regret this?
As we have said again, based on the assessment, what you're saying is not going to happen.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's not going to happen. All right. So here we go. Now, here's how you get a nice culture war going, which, of course, as you tweeted, sir, I think that's what a lot of this has to do with. Not all of it, because as we'll see, this kind of culture war, kind of fear mongering happens on both sides. So here's a guy who calls himself Steve.
We went from this 86% of Democrats in a July 2020 Morning Consult political poll supported statewide mask mandates punishable by fines or jail time for non-compliance, all the way to this. We ain't doing a sequel to COVID, son. If we catch you without a mask in public this time, you getting hashtag kirked. Well, guess what? We are not also doing a sequel to COVID, son. You can try, but I promise you it's not going to end well. Who else is not going to comply with masks and lockdown for a second time? Salute you.
And this guy says, Hantavirus, we will not comply. We've seen a lot of this online. And then on the other side, you see this. You see, oh, here we go again. They're going to bungle this again. We're all going to die. So here is Midas Sharice Lee. I don't know if there's any affiliation with the Midas Touch network, but this is self-described blue no matter who Democrat. Here they are posting a link to whoever the doctor is here on TikTok. We'll find out when we play it.
Will spread. It absolutely will get worse. We are underprepared, we are underwarned, and we are under-resourced. You've heard of this cruise ship. It docks in Spain on Monday. 3 have already passed. 5 are confirmed sick. Dozens, potentially carrying a virus that we know spread person to person, are jumping off a cruise ship in just a few days. That has happened before exactly once in recorded history. I'm Rick Pescator. I'm an ER doctor, former state chief physician. I'm the editor-in-chief of Emergency Medicine News. I helped lead the national COVID response.
That's great.
Oh,
to
there
know.
you go.
This is a real source of wisdom here.
And its failures. 30 passengers have already gotten off this boat. 6 are in California and Georgia and Arizona for a virus that hides in the body for up to a month and a half. We may not know who's infected until June. We didn't learn shit from the pandemic. We didn't build the system that's supposed to catch this. We took it apart.
It's apples and oranges. And this is why you say, okay, so first of all, you have basically, for all of the bluster here on both sides of this, you have the WHO and Jay Bhattacharya essentially on the same side. Now, no one wants to admit that on either side, because to the WHO, MAGA is toxic, and to MAGA, the WHO is toxic. But they're both basically saying the same thing. This is not COVID. The virus is much more difficult to spread than COVID. It's much deadlier. Part of why it's more difficult to spread is because it's deadlier, just like the Ebola virus, quite deadly, quite hard to catch, because you can only spread it through close contact with a very ill symptomatic person. If you remember, Gene Hackman's wife died of the hantavirus, and then he died a week later. Very dark story. He obviously had some kind of Alzheimer's or dementia. His caretaker died of this random freak virus, and then he was obviously left alone for the next week of his life, and he eventually succumbed. Horrible story. Not a good disease to catch, very difficult disease. So it's apples and oranges. But here, not coincidentally, in my view, here's Donald Trump talking about vaccines.
But I don't believe that, you have to have a mandate for all of them. The polio vaccine's amazing. It's, wiped it out. And I believe in vaccines, but, I think we were up to 88 vaccines. And I really feel that vaccines, if they were given in smaller quantities, they want to cut some out, and that's good too. And I agree with that. 82 is too many. If you look at Denmark and other countries, you have
72,
12, 14, I think 17.
And 20 are flu shots, which are almost entirely voluntary everywhere.
but I look at these beautiful little babies and they get a vat, I mean, so like a big
pumped full of
glass
stuff.
Of stuff pumped
glass
into
of
their
stuff
bodies.
pumped into them.
And I think it's a very negative thing to do. And I would like to see it. I'm not doing this in terms of Bobby or not. I hope they agree with that, but that's just my opinion. I would love to see much smaller shots. Like
Okay. The reason you have as many shots as you have is because they're smaller. That's why you have as many shots as you have, because the live virus vaccines are more potent. So you only need one shot of it, but they're also not as safe because you have a lot of breakthrough cases that way. So the reason why you have more shots is because the inert virus vaccines are weaker. So Donald Trump clearly does not know the first thing about this. He says we need smaller doses. Well, if you're complaining about the number of needles, and then the next thing out of your mouth is we need smaller doses. Well, smaller doses equals more needles. That's why you have as many doses as you have, because each dose is weaker. So the point is, he knows nothing about this. Absolutely not the first thing. All this messaging is coming out at a time when, Garland, you say his poll numbers are in the toilet. So here's what everybody needs to know about the Hantavirus, okay? And I kind of know this from experience, okay? Because I had a Hantavirus paranoid scare myself about 6 months ago. I found these things. That's not my finger, in case anybody is confused about that. Little tiny black specks that have been appearing around my house. They're like spongy, and they're in weird places. These were in my sink. Does anyone know what that is? That's probably rat shit. So if you find rat shit, what you're supposed to do in your house, ventilate the area, spray it with a wet cleaner like a Lysol. That will, neutralize whatever's on there and prevent it from vaporizing. And then once you leave it there for however long you're supposed to leave it there, whatever, 15 minutes, half hour, scoop it up, put it in a bag, and you're done. Easy. Don't vacuum it up, because when you vacuum it up, you can aerosolize it. That's the mistake I made. So I thought I got myself and my family killed with the Hantavirus when I vacuumed it up. But I learned you're not supposed to do that. If you don't vacuum rat shit, or you don't sniff rat shit, you should be fine. And if someone's really, really sick, then, don't go near them. That's generally a rule of life. You're not supposed to be in contact with people who are like extremely ill, lest you get ill yourself. So that's about what you need to know. If you go to the CDC, know how it spreads. People usually get Hantavirus from contact with rodents in areas where the disease is present, especially when exposed to their urine, droppings, and saliva. The best way to see if a rat has Hantavirus is to cut its cock off and sniff it. He didn't get that on the website, though. They did not take that recommendation. They're like, Bobby, what do you mean? Trust me. I'm a professional. The Andes virus is the only type of hantavirus that is known to spread person to person. This spread is usually limited to people who have close contact with the ill person. Close contact includes direct physical contact, prolonged time spent in an enclosed space, and exposure to the infected person's saliva, respiratory secretions, or other bodily fluids. Kissing, sharing utensils, handling contaminated bedding, castrating roadkill, that kind of thing. Not that most people would ever think to do that, but you never know. Fish rots from the head down, as they say. So that's the deal, seems to be with the Hantavirus. No, it's not COVID. It doesn't spread nearly as easy as COVID. I don't see anybody talking about masks or lockdowns or anything. This seems to be a double psyop, which, going back to Garland's tweet at the very beginning, hey, heads, aliens, tails, Hantavirus. But that's kind of my take on this, is that obviously it's very sad for the people who caught it, and you do kind of feel for the people on the boat. At first, I thought the rat shit was all over the boat. Now, if there's rat shit all over a boat, then you got a bit of a problem, because then anybody could be exposed to the rat shit, and that could be a threat to people on the boat. But if it was people who got it at a landfill, took it onto the boat, as long as they didn't have close contact with anybody else on that boat, doesn't seem like there's tremendous need for alarm. And it seems like just with Ebola, a lot of the scare is because the virus is particularly deadly. But to compare this to COVID, as Bhattacharya says, and as the WHO guy seems to be saying, it's apples and oranges. And so, yeah, this kind of feels like a double psyop. so far to me. What do you think, Garland? Sorry.
Yeah, at a time, I could be suspicious and say, at a time when we've read things about energy lockdowns, right? Oh, what are we going to do? We're going to be out of diesel fuel. We're going to be out of gas, and we may have to do lockdowns to make people stay home. But
Sure.
It may be convenient if there was another reason that
A 45-day lockdown. Sure.
Yeah, we had to do some lockdowns just because, hey, you wouldn't want people to get Hantavirus. But let's face it, in the last year, measles. They treated measles like it was Ebola, right? It was like, hey, there's 13. I literally turn on the news and there's somebody telling us how many cases of measles were in Missouri. And I'm like,
Right.
Man, when I was growing up, everybody had measles. You had some little, what the hell is this? It's measles. You're going to be home for a week. Okay. And that was it. And now measles is like some deadly thing that everybody dies instantly just from the word measles. You don't have to catch it. It'll kill you. Just thinking about measles is deadly, right? So now it's almost like there's an industry, and maybe it's the media industry. They're always looking for things to freak us out about, to horrify us about, to put us into our little silos about it. Hey, there's a new virus around. Okay, great. This blue cult can all talk about how they're responsible and they want to deal with the virus. And the red cult can all say, I don't trust the government, which I kind of like, I'm not red or blue, but I don't trust the government. The people that say, I don't trust the government, I'm usually with them. But and they just play games with this stuff until something happens. I asked myself, why this level of freak outery in the news over something that has happened? I remember reading things about what was the other virus, Hantavirus. There's a couple of them that are on ships. There's another one, not Hantavirus, where a bunch of people on the ship. I think it started with an N. But anyway, you go on
norovirus?
Yeah, something like neurovirus. Yeah, it's like you go on I don't know. I'm not much of cruise. It seems like you're taking your life in your own hands. You're going to get some weird virus if you go on a ship.
No, exactly.
But now that stuff it's the media plays it, the politicians play it, and I'm like, hey man, I could slip on a banana peel and break my neck on the way out of the office right now after the show. Do I really have to walk around, just constantly facing the fear of death? Apparently that's what they want us to do.
Well, measles is measles is actually, I think, the most contagious virus on Earth. This, like Ebola, is not. Now, Ebola at the time, in 2014, that was the most viral news story of the decade at the time. The most. And I remember I lived in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and when we had our first case in the country, it was the guy who went bowling at a bowling alley that was literally 5 blocks from my apartment. I realized it was 5 blocks from my apartment because the day I got up to go and move my van, which was parked right near the bowling alley, I couldn't get to it because there were guys in hazmat suits all around. Like, what the hell's going on? Turns out the guy had Ebola walking right down past my house. So yeah, man, it is freaky, especially when the viruses are as deadly as that. Like Hantavirus is pretty deadly, pretty high fatality rate, 30-40%. Ebola was about 50% at the time. So you have people who are kind of, you have people who all have different traumas depending on where they fell on COVID. The people who were paralyzed with fear about COVID obviously carry that into the next potential viral outbreak because they're scared of the disease. And then you have the people who are concerned that they're going to be forced to stay in their house for a year straight, are concerned about that. I don't see any of that happening, though. To me, none of that really maps onto reality. What made COVID so effective in terms of implementing the kind of social control it did is the fact that it was such a contagious disease. It's actually the perfect thing, and this is why I have my theories. I don't know what we're allowed to say on YouTube anymore about this, but I feel like 9/11 was kind of allowed to happen on purpose, shall we say, to fulfill a greater agenda. You could not devise a better virus for that than a coronavirus because it has relatively low fatality rate. It's deadliest when it's most novel. So when it first gets out of the lab, gets out, it is not deadly enough to cause an extinction level event, but it's deadly enough to kill enough people to freak everybody else out. And then as it mutates, it gets weaker, but you still are able to say, hey, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's in your supermarket. With this is not that. this is not going to work that way. It's too hard to contract. So it just seems right now to be a sort of means for people to sort of dig in and score some points, against their political opponents. I feel like Matt Taibbi now. It's everybody just needs to calm down, relax. It's not.
Well, at least this time they didn't start off with the mysterious vaping disease.
That's right.
I mean, that we had the mysterious vaping disease, and then COVID came up, and the mysterious vaping disease just disappeared. It just wasn't there anymore after COVID. It was mysterious, but it was brief. And it was like an intro, you know what I mean? It was like an introduction. Like, let's start with the mysterious vaping disease. We'll kind of get you a little bit freaked out. We'll, give you some reasons why that is there that doesn't really make sense. And then all of a sudden COVID hits and bang, no more mysterious vaping disease. And it's never been, nobody's ever had any problems with vaping since COVID showed up. Isn't that interesting? I always felt that was weird. That was kind of wild. The mysterious vaping, and it lasted like a month. 2 months?
Yes, I don't even remember that. I was never into vaping.
Yeah, no, well,
I never paid
I don't
it
think it had anything to do with vaping, quite frankly.
Never bothered looking into it.
Oh, well, I'll put it like this. Everybody, go to my Substack. I did a video. I was an investigator. In fact, I ran an investigations department in a police department. I was the chief of investigations. And I went through like an investigator and said, this is what happened. This is the beginning. Here's the mysterious vaping disease. Here's the beginning of what was it called? What was the Operation Warp Speed, which started September 19th,
right?
2019, 3 months before we even supposedly had a coronavirus. September 17th, September 19th. It was in mid-September of 2019 when Operation Warp Speed started. And anybody can go, just look up Donald Trump's, he did what's the thing that the presidents do all the time, that he got pissed off at Joe Biden about. He wrote a presidential...
The auto pen.
No. It's when the president says we're going to do this.
Oh, the executive order.
Executive order.
Sorry,
he did an executive
you were doing
order.
pen. I was like, all right.
Right. And that started, the executive order was about a pandemic response. He did that in September. And it was, we could have a pandemic that could spread all over the place.
There was all kinds of shit. Oh, yeah,
and if in fact we had a pandemic, then we'd need a vaccine. So let's put all of these things in place to start a vaccine. He did that 2-3 months before we actually, and then suddenly a pandemic started.
Yeah.
Oddly enough. It's almost like they saw it coming.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, there's talk about how they were developing a hantavirus vaccine, which doesn't seem necessary given how few cases there are. You'd think you would, develop some for some more contagious things first. But apparently
monkeypox didn't work. You know what I mean? I mean, they were going with monkeypox.
That was the other one.
Monkeypox.
Yeah, forget monkeypox.
Like, I don't know.
Monkeypox.
There's some black people getting freaked out about monkeypox, and then so the Democrats probably said, yeah, we're not going to go with monkeypox. Let's go with something else. So hantavirus. There's no people actually like the Hanta tribe or something like that would get freaked out by it. So you can go with hantavirus.
Okay, so what you need to know is don't go bird watching in a landfill. Not a good idea. I don't know why you'd want to anyway. But don't go bird watching in a landfill. Don't vacuum rat shit. Get it wet. If you see rat shit, open the windows, spray some, Lysol on it, give it some time, scoop it up with a wet paper towel. Don't vacuum it. And
don't do like the cops do in the movies, right? And it's like some white powder, and they're like, heroin, 100%. Don't do that, but don't like rub it and stick it.
Don't lick the rat shit, and don't cut off a dead rat's cock and examine it. Leave that to the professionals who know what they're doing. RFK knows how to do that properly. No, that's not amateur business. Not just anybody goes up to a dead rodent on the side of the road and cuts its dick off. You have to be a pro to do that.
My only question is, will the app that they gave us during COVID, like that, so that we could travel and things like that, if those people who got vaccinated or whatever, but will that app be updated now? So that we can travel and use Waygo. I mean, what are that? Use those. See, now they have those unmanned taxi cabs and stuff that you can use. So I think the app for the next pandemic will allow us to use those, self-driving taxis.
Yeah, there you go. That's something to look forward to. I saw somebody say, "Don't felch the rat." Yeah, no, that would be that. That seems to be a very, very dangerous thing to do in the Hantavirus era. Do not come in a rat and then suck it out of its ass. That's great health advice, I think. They should make me direct that. I would love if Jay Bhattacharya said that on TV. Said that to Jake Tapper. Now, don't rape the rats and then drink the cum out of their assholes. That's a good way to get Hantavirus, we think. It's not been proven, but that is our hypothesis. We're actually going to do a study. I'll commission a study where we have 100 people fuck dead rats and we have 50 of them suck the cum back out of them and 50 of them don't. I bet you the 50 of them who don't live long, healthy lives.
Yeah, I'm betting that somewhere in the Epstein files. Somewhere. I mean, the crap they did. I guarantee they did that somewhere in the Epstein files.
Of the people who sucked their semen out of the dead rat, of the 50 who sucked their semen, only 35 lived, whereas 49 of the control group went on to live. So there you go. See, I think we solved it. I think we should submit this to the CDC. They should put this on their website. Hey, Garland, I bet you love that, the end of that segment. I know I told you 2 hours. Do you have time for one more?
Yeah, let's keep going.
All right, let's keep going. We got one more segment with Garland Nixon, and we got a surprise guest joining me for my final segment of the night. You'll find out who that is in just a couple of minutes here. I'll take a couple of these Rumble rants. I've noticed a lot of progressives seem more obsessed with white nationalism than the very real dangers of Zionism. Have you noticed this? Yeah, exactly. Good point. Good point. I have noticed.
Oh, remember it was we were told Sharia law. It's Sharia law that's going to get you. And I'm like, well, then, like, why is it that I can't, like, criticize Zionism? I mean, I can criticize Islam, but I can't criticize Zionism. Perhaps it's not Sharia law that I got to worry about. Perhaps it's Zionism.
Right. Yeah, exactly. AOC runs cover for a left-of-center genocide, says Tusker. She is an establishment hack, just like Natalie Wynn from ContraPoints. Keaton, have you checked your new Razor for any special 8200 battery components? Good one.
Oh, it's listening to you. It's listening to everything you say.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I'm thinking now, now people are going to have to start getting their flip phones again. I feel like this is an across-the-board thing. I don't think I'm alone in this. I don't know. Let's see what the chat thinks, and let's see what you think. I don't think I'm alone in kind of yearning for the days before all of this.
Yeah.
I
agree.
Like, I kind of like the idea of having a flip phone again and, like, checking Twitter a couple times a day on my computer and just, like, taking it off the phone. It's just not good for you. I've been moving this month. I've had a lot to deal with in my personal life over the past month, so I've been not as, like, dialed in every single day as I usually am. And I got to say, as stressful as moving is, it's actually on a whole much less stressful than, like, being addicted to the news,
Yeah, I'm with that because I complain. I go to the gym, and you want to, like, go use some machine. And there's always somebody, and they're sitting at the machine and they're doing this. Well, like, when you walk into the gym, you, like, get on the treadmill, you do this, you stretch, you lift, you work 10 minutes, and the whole time, it's idiots.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what you come here for? So there's so many things that we do that, like, people come in to do something or use something or whatever, and you see somebody sit there and they do that and they lose time and they get absorbed into this world and they're just forever and ever swiping left and right. It's not good.
No.
Leave your phone in the car, everybody. Leave your stinking phone in the car. You're getting on my nerves. I'm just saying. That's
it's not good.
Right by God.
It's definitely not good. It is definitely not good for you. Not the actual, like, mechanism of being glued to the phone. Even, like, whatever your hobby is. It's just, no.
Are you saying that these people on Facebook aren't really my friends? You said they're my friends right there. You got 5,000 friends.
You got 5,000 friends. You not happy? What's that about? How many friends do you want? Keaton, does your new Razor whisper political messages to you? Good one. Vindicated. Or maybe does your new Razor squirt at you when it's done, like the shake weight in that South Park episode? Thank you, Vindicated. Jim Taleb, thanks for the $2 super sticker. Appreciate that very much. All right. V Nettlesbaum says, I mostly work from home. These Rumble rants would probably be my gas money if I had to drive into work all the time. May they help to keep the Dude Dissidents gas tank full. Well, thank you for that. Thank you
It ain't
for
going to
that.
be as easy as it used to be, pal. Trust me. There's a whole lot of Rumble rants to fill the old Dude Dissidents gas tank.
Oh, yeah. Whole lot of Rumble rants to fill the tank now. I just read that Hanta literally means scam in Hebrew. We live in a simulation. Yeah. Well, there's the Susie Wiles virus. That's the Yenta virus. That would be the Yenta virus named after her. Vienticus, we're all close to vaporized rat shit constantly. Our politicians. Yes, thank you. It's already a vaporized rat shit epidemic in Washington, D.C. John M. in Minnesota, hantavirus cases have doubled in Argentina compared to last year, and it was there in 2020. It was determined that airborne transmission was possible. Oh, never mind, disregard. What do you mean, oh, never mind, disregard? Did you read that? I mean, it is, I don't know what the medical term is for airborne versus not. It does vapor. Like I said, if you vacuum up a pile of rat shit, it gets aerosolized. I don't know if that means it's airborne. I don't think so. I still think you have to be relatively close to it. That's why it's very, very rare. People get it when they clean out infested areas, or if they get unlucky and they were just in the area where a diseased rat happens to have left some things behind. That's why I first thought, when I first read the story, I thought it was on the boat. I thought the boat was infested with rats and they were shitting all over the boat and getting people sick. That would have been a pretty scary thing for people on the boat. If it was just a couple people who got it in Argentina and came onto the boat, it seems very unlikely that there are many more cases there. So far, none in the U.S. here. All right, let's
and weird viruses, look, this was years ago. I knew somebody who was went to New York and got sick. They went to the hospital, they got really sick and they couldn't figure out what was wrong. And the person almost died, right? And at some point they diagnosed them with this weird 1 in a million virus that shows up, once every so many years and just plops up. So, there's these weird viruses out there that just every now and then shows up and kill somebody in Brooklyn or whatever, or somebody gets really sick or somebody shows up and they can't figure out what's wrong with them. So there's always been a certain amount of that out there where within a population of billions of people, some weird virus is going to pop up here and there, and certain people will be susceptible to it and they'll crap out. So yes, we should be concerned about these things, but it's also kind of a fact of nature that these things happen and always has been.
Well,
not saying that you should, sniff rat feces. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying perhaps we should calm down a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the airborne factor, I think the dispute over that, if you say a respiratory virus can be airborne from person to person. Right. Where it doesn't seem like that's the case here. It seems like you have to be in sustained close contact with another person to get it, which means it's not going to spread nearly as fast, which means I think this is going to go the way of a lot of the other false alarms. Okay. All right. Let's do last segment with our friend Garland Nixon here. Go over to Garland's channel and give him a subscribe. You're closing in on 100,000 YouTube subscribers, aren't you, Garland?
Hey, wait a minute. Why did I just get an advertisement for I Am Legend? Oh, anyway, never mind. What was that? How many YouTube subscribers? Yes, I got 98 or 99,100.
99.1. So let's go over there and smash that subscribe button for Garland Nixon. It's at Garland N. Can somebody put the link to Garland's channel in the chat, please? We got mods over here. It's at Garland N. That is Garland's channel. Let's get him over. Get him to 100K. Get him this plaque. See, they send you this.
Really?
They send you this thing when you get 100,000 subscribers. Yeah. I still have it, but I lost the back of it, so I can't stand it up anymore. I have to lean it. So that's when you know you've made it. And you're closing in, my friend. All right, let's do this one. This is one that I was really excited to do, and I'm actually excited to do with you, Garland, because I assume you know more about this than I do. This is before my time, man. This was way before I got in the independent media game. This story goes back almost 10 years here. But this is from Aaron Mate at the Gray Zone. who I did invite on the show tonight to do this segment with me, and he very politely said, thanks for the invite, thanks for covering it, but he is traveling today. Highly protected OPCW confirms it buried critical evidence in Syria chemical weapons probe. So if you remember, way back in 2018, Trump announces strikes on Syria following suspected chemical weapons attack by Assad forces. And Aaron Mate published in The Nation in 2020 an article here, Did Trump Bomb Syria on False Grounds? The American media is ignoring leaks from the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons that suggest a whitewash. So he writes, a series of leaked documents from the OPCW raised the possibility that the Trump administration bombed Syria on false grounds and pressured officials at the world's top chemical weapons watchdog to cover it up. Two OPCW officials, highly regarded scientists with more than 25 years of combined experience at the organization, challenged the whitewash from inside. Yet, unlike many whistleblowers of the Trump era, they have found no champion or even an audience within establishment circles in the United States. The Trump administration's April 13th, 2018 bombing of Syria came days after it accused Syrian forces of killing nearly 50 people in a chemical weapons attack on Douma, a Damascus suburb. Widely circulated video footage showed scores of dead bodies inside an apartment complex and another group of alleged gas attack victims treated at a hospital. Although the White House did not provide evidence for its allegations against Syria, the harrowing images convinced Congress and the media to cheer on military strikes, as they did under similar circumstances the year prior. Yet there were early grounds for skepticism. The Syrian government was on the verge of retaking the last Douma holdouts of Jaish al-Islam, a Saudi-backed militia that was relentlessly shelling the Syrian capital. To suddenly deploy chemical weapons would mean that Syrian forces knowingly crossed the red line that would trigger U.S. military intervention. Subsequent reporting from British journalists Robert Fisk of The Independent, BBC producer Riyam Dalati, and James Harkin's investigation for The Intercept found evidence that the civilians filmed in the hospital were not exposed to toxic gas. The inference drawn from the OPCW's final report, widely disseminated, including by the Trump administration, was that gas cylinders found in Douma likely came from Syrian military aircraft. An unpublished engineering study reached the opposite conclusion. The study evaluated competing hypotheses. Either the cylinders were dropped from the sky or they were manually placed. There is a higher probability, it concluded, that both cylinders were manually placed rather than being delivered from aircraft, i.e., they want justification to attack Syria. So here is Aaron in March 2023 going before the United Nations to talk about his skepticism about the OPCW report and the fact that the whistleblowers were essentially ignored.
This is now the third time that I've had the opportunity to address members of the Security Council about the controversy surrounding the OPCW's investigation of the alleged chemical attack in Douma. And if I can share one opinion, while I really appreciate this opportunity, I have to say that I find it unfortunate that nearly 5 years after that alleged incident in Douma, this controversy around the OPCW investigation is still being debated in public rather than being addressed by the OPCW. Because fundamentally, this is a controversy that is internal to the OPCW. And at the heart of it are at least 2 veteran inspectors from the OPCW with nearly 30 years of combined experience who worked on the Douma investigation, who deployed to Syria for the Douma investigation. And what they say is very simple. They have accused senior officials at the OPCW of suppressing findings from their probe and putting out unsupported conclusions that baselessly implicate the Syrian government in a chemical attack.
And that takes you to here. OPCW confirms it buried critical evidence in Syria chemical weapons probe. So this is Mate's article from just a few days ago. For the first time in a prolonged cover-up scandal, the world's top chemical watchdog has acknowledged censoring a finding that undermined allegations of a toxic gas attack by the former Syrian government. According to previously leaked documents, expert German military toxicologists consulted by the OPCW ruled out chlorine gas as the cause of death of dozens of victims in an alleged chemical attack in the Syrian town of Douma in April 2018. The experts even raised the possibility that the incident was a false flag. The OPCW suppressed this finding and released a final report asserting that chlorine gas was likely used. The OPCW's conclusion aligned with the claims of the US, UK, and France, who bombed Syria in April 2018 over what they alleged was a Syrian government chemical attack in Douma. After years of stonewalling, the OPCW has admitted that the Germans' input, along with the fact that they were even consulted, was concealed. The concession came during a legal battle with Dr. Brendan Whalen, a veteran OPCW inspector and senior member of the team that deployed to Syria for the Douma mission. Whalen and another Douma team member, Ian Henderson, raised concerns about the manipulation of the investigation's findings. After their complaints became public, the OPCW leadership publicly disparaged the two dissenting inspectors and penalized them for alleged breaches of confidentiality. Whalen successfully challenged his censure before the Geneva-based tribunal of the International Labor Organization, which recently awarded him damages and instructed the OPCW to withdraw its impugned decision. One of the allegations against Whalen was that he improperly sent two letters in March and April 2019 to Fernando Arias, the OPCW Director General, raising concerns about unethical conduct in the Douma investigation. In trying to make its case against Whalen, the OPCW inadvertently admitted to the censorship that he had challenged. In his letters to Arias, the OPCW complained Whalen included specific and detailed information gathered by fact-finding mission investigators from toxicology reports. This information, classified as OPCW highly protected, was not included in the final report, which was publicly released. So there it is. Here's the text. On April 25th, 2019, the appellant sent to the staff member without the need to know a copy of a letter that he had written to the Director General expressing his disagreement with the findings in the final report on the Douma incident. As with the letter of 25th March, the 25th April letter contains specific and detailed information gathered by FFM investigators from toxicology experts. This information, classified as OPCW highly protected, was not included in the final report, which was publicly released. So that came out in this recent suit. The OPCW's confirmation that it excluded the toxicologist's highly protected information from the publicly released final report confirms one of Whalen's key grievances. Critical information, like the expert opinions of the toxicologists, has shockingly been omitted, Whalen wrote in his 2019 April letter. There is even no record in the report of those consultations. To say that this selective use of expert opinions and facts is disturbing is an understatement. Whalen protested the omission of the German toxicologist's input because of its profound implications. In public statements after the Douma incident, experts had already raised doubts that chlorine caused the deaths in Douma. But the German military toxicologists who were consulted by the OPCW in June 2018 were more definite. The Germans told the OPCW that the circumstances of the fatalities, apparent immediate death and collapse in piles at the center of two rooms, a failure to escape, and rapid profuse foaming at the mouth and nose were inconsistent with chlorine poisoning. According to the then head of the OPCW laboratory, the experts even raised the possibility of a staged attack in Douma because the circumstances of death for the victims do not match chlorine. The Germans' assessment was included in the Douma team's initial report, which Whalen authored with the help of fellow experts, and after peer approval, including the team leader, prepared for publication in June 2018. But when the final report was released in March 2019, after Whalen had departed the organization, the OPCW again excluded any mention of the Germans' expert opinions or even that they had been consulted. And if you could see here, Aaron points out in the graphic here, June meeting with German toxicologists omitted. They go consultations with toxicologists were listed in September and October but not for June. As a direct consequence of Whelan taking legal action, the OPCW has finally admitted that it suppressed this critical information in the still unresolved probe into how dozens of people in Duma lost their lives. So Aaron's obviously been on this story for a very long time. Not to go on a nostalgia tour where everybody looks much younger than we all do now, although I wasn't in this space at the time, so I don't have images of a younger self. Here's Jimmy Dore in April 2017, because there were 2 attacks in April 2017 that were suspected false flag attacks as well. And so here's a few minutes of Jimmy's video from now almost 10 years ago. So this was even before the 2018 attack in question.
People are rooting for war. You think I'm kidding? Look at this tweet. Susan Hennessy. She got a blue check. She says, I honestly don't care if Trump needs to bash Obama on this to score political points. I only care that Trump actually does something now. So you call him a Russian, and you red bait Trump constantly, and then you have a fake gas attack. Now we got him. Now he's got to start a war. That's all she cares about, is if he starts a war. That's what she's saying. All I care about is if he starts a war. The fuck is wrong with you people? This is the guy you all said was unhinged and unstable, and now you want him to start a war?
Yep, and now he did.
I thought he was unstable and a maniac. So David Cleon says, this is insane. Here's an unstable person, and you want him to start another war. Yeah. Yeah, they do. The whole fucking mainstream media has lost their mind. They've lost their mind. And guess what? This video is going to be demonetized by YouTube.
Yep. So this is the other part of this. When you talk about the censorship around this issue, and the censorship around Syria persists, they don't so much strike you for talking about this, but they demonetize a lot. If you remember, that's why you put the S-Y-R- so that the algorithm doesn't pick up the word Syria, because the handful of times we've covered Syria, on the show, a lot of yellow icons follow that. And this is a lot of why they're able to control the narrative, this next part here.
To bring you this story. And you're not going to get this story anywhere else. And I knew they were going to demonetize this video before I even started it, but I'm doing it anyway. So this is getting important now. We're getting really close to a real war. Even though we're in 7 of them already. This is getting close to World War III, and I want to keep covering this.
Yep. And now almost 10 years later, here we are. Trump back in the White House. They got the war they wanted. And what was the precursor to this? Obviously, Syria had to fall, right? Syria had to fall before you could even think about attacking Iran, which was the big prize. And so what was all that shit about the gas attack? That was a pretext to attack Syria. And I remember at the time, watching those videos. I mean, this was, like I said, almost 10 years ago at this time. But I do remember seeing that story unfold and how people who told what turns out to be the truth about that were just dismissed, disparaged, demonetized, and it all suits the same agenda, which now collides upon a war in Iran. That's clearly what that was all leading up to. So, Garland, what is your memory of this? I mean, you've been, like I said, you've been in this game a lot longer than I have. Do you remember following this and, seeing this through to what now, seems to be overwhelmingly likely the vindication of reporting like Jimmy's and like Aaron's?
Well, I think that this was already vindicated, because at the time, what was the foundation of why we were there? There was this group, it was an ISIS group, and it changed the name to the Al-Nusra Front. And it was run by this guy who was a maniac, and he was a complete head-chopping madman. And we had a multi-million-dollar reward out for him at that time, because we had to stop. Oh, that's right, he's in charge of the country right now. So the whole thing was about ISIS, and they had if you remember, they had a video where the white helmets who were started by this guy named James Lemisse, some British, special ops guy, right? And they were the ones, they had videos where they came in and they found people who were supposedly had been exposed to chemical agents, and they were spraying water and stuff all over them. I mean, the whole thing was just such a fraud. And it ends up that when it all goes, all of the hidden stuff, all of the lies, and at some point they're just like, okay, well, we're just going to take the ISIS guy and put him in charge of the country now. So, never mind, forget all that stuff. So really, when they took the ISIS guy and put him in front of the country, what do you really need to talk about the rest of the stuff for? The foundation of it, we're protecting the people in Syria from ISIS. And now he's in charge. The guy's in charge of the country. He's in the White House. He's in the EU Parliament. He's at the United Nations, and all of these people who are there to protect the Syrian people from him have now put him in charge of the country. Well, excuse me, he's not really in charge of the country, but they put him there as a figurehead, allegedly in charge of the country. He was always their guy, and that's the interesting thing about Syria,
Yeah, well, I remember when Assad fell, the fear was that it would essentially lead to what it has led to, more or less, right? I mean, it has more or less happened the way the people who were very upset about that warned that it would happen. And of course, the typical propaganda. Well, you love Bashar al-Assad. It has nothing to do with how you feel about Bashar al-Assad. It's about what are the impacts of this going to be. And it seemed fairly obvious.
Yeah, and at the time there was so little evidence. Do you remember the year because they mentioned that the year before there was supposedly a chemical weapons attack, but what they left out was Barack Obama was in power, and then they're like, you should attack. He goes, no, but there's a red line. What's the red line? If there was chemical weapons, and 4 days later, look, we got chemical weapons. It's almost like he handed them the keys to the city. What would it take, Barack Obama? Chemical weapons. Hold my beer. And that's what's gone on in Syria the whole time. We have evidence of Hillary Clinton saying, I should get rid of Syria for Israel. We've got Jake Sullivan sending a cable that says Al-Qaeda in Syria is on our side. The whole thing was a psyop on us because they were planning on taking out the country. And in the end, the evil ISIS is now in charge of leader is now in charge of Syria, but he's kind of a Zionist. So it's really weird.
All right. Well, Garland Nixon, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Really had a great time with you. Would love to have you back on with Russ here. I think the three of us could make a pretty good panel. Would love to have you on again. I can't believe it took this long for us to team up like this, but great pleasure to see you again. And thanks so much for joining. Please tell everyone, remind everyone where they can find you before you sign off.
Well, I'm on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that, but I'm on Telegram. I'm also on YouTube, Rumble, Rockfin, and X is the Garland Nixon.
Awesome. All right, Garland. Thanks so much again. Great pleasure to have you on the show, and we hope to do this again sometime.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, man. Bye-bye. Garland Nixon, everybody. Round of applause in the chat. That was a long time coming. Knew Garland for a while. Never got him on the show. Glad we could make that happen before Russ returns. So for those filing in late, there will be no show Tuesday since I must be out of my apartment this weekend. I'm running out of chances to get out of it. So no show Tuesday, which means this is the last show without Russell Dobular. Russell Dobular will be back live from New York City on Thursday. Jake, can we have the scroll, please? And thank you very much, sir. If you like what we do here and you want to help support us, please consider becoming a member. Membership is what keeps us going. We absolutely could not do the show without the people who are scrolling on the screen right now. So if you would like to become a member, dodissidents.com/Patreon/Substack or /locals. Membership starts at $5 a month. Perks include your name up in lights here on the show scroll. Film Club once a month with our friends at Right Brain TV. bonus live streams and Q&As once a month, ad-free live stream replays emailed directly to your inbox the day after they air live. So if you miss a stream and you want to watch it back free of commercial interruption, we email you your own little private screener of every episode in its entirety. And, of course, call-in access to all of our weekly Q&As, which happen every Sunday night after the main show over on Rumble. We will be heading over there tonight, being that it is, of course, Sunday nights. And one thing I never had a chance to do, despite wanting to in Russell's absence, is create custom intermissions for every week. So with the return of Russell Dobular will be the return of the custom homemade intermission. So this is the last Sunday without one. We'll go to the alligator people again. But it is Sunday night. Members have call-in access to that Q&A. All are welcome to watch. Members are welcome to call in over on Rumble after the show. But we still got plenty of show left before we go over there. So let's take some super chats and Rumble rants first. Roachy Boy says, can't believe I didn't get my Valley Girl kit segment. Not good. Believe me, not good. Yeah, it's unfortunate we lost that last episode. It's just there's absolutely no way I can make it happen. You know, you always just run out of time. You always think, oh, yeah, we'll get it done. It'll only take like another day and a half. And then there's just like layer upon layer upon layer of shit that needs to be moved, especially when you have 3 kids. A lot of stuff to move. A lot of stuff. Vienticus, can people get the virus from Trump's new rat farts statue? That's a good question. Vienticus. George Gunnell, thanks for the $1.99. Ooga booga. Thank you. Norum Glauchlin Doherty. That is an Irish name right there. Now I can't bird watch in a pile of garbage in South America anymore. Way to harsh my buzz. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You can't bird watch in a pile of shit. I've been fighting long COVID this whole time. You're telling me that I have to open a second front. Yeah, well, hopefully not, my friend. Hopefully not. Fingers crossed. Next time I cut off somebody's member, says Nina Kant, and authorities question me, I'll say I'm with the Kennedy Member Research Foundation. Yeah, exactly. A turd burglar says, hey, good advice on the Hantavirus. I'm doing my part to help out also. Thank you. Yes. Don't lick the cat. Don't lick the rat shit. Don't lick the rat shit. That might be the name of this podcast episode. Vienticus, instead of Sharia law, we live under shitty Israel law. That's right. Vienticus, whoever decided to make the quirky keypad for every phone totally haptic needs to die in several fires. The quirky keypad for every phone. Are you talking about for like at each model of smartphone? Or are you talking about the keypads on the flip phones? Because I had a flip phone for a very short period of time. I went straight from basically having like the whatever predated the flip phone, like the real old school phones, to my friend gave me his, what was the first smartphone I had? It wasn't an iPhone. I'm an iPhone guy now. It was the other one, the Android. My friend just gave me his old Android. That was my first smartphone. Got that one already. Sorry about that. Vienticus says, when people ask me why I don't carry a cell phone around, I tell them I live in a post-cell phone lifestyle. There you go. I like it. I'm thinking about it, man. I am starting to think about it because it just, you know, the more I think about it, the more sense it makes. Louise Brooks, shout out to Garland. So happy Jamal is back. Great to watch you together. Yeah, Jamal Thomas back on the air. I know he had some health problems, but it's great to see him back. And he's live pretty much every morning, right? I think Garland was on Jamal's show a while back, a few days ago. Mike, the Russian bot, never left the flip phone. Wow, you still got the flip phone. Good for you. Good for you. EO Shush, because I'm so fucked. I thought those brown Tic Tacs I found behind the fridge were just missed ones from the Easter egg hunt. Thank you, EO Shush. I don't even know how I had rat shit in my apartment because I have 2 cats. Maybe it wasn't rat shit. Maybe it just looked like, maybe it was something else. I don't know. It looked like rat shit because it was like, like pellets like that looked exactly like the picture I showed you. And they were like in the corner of a closet where you would think a rat would hide. But I was on a 2nd floor apartment. I had 2 cats. Like, how would a rat even get in there and like live? Like, I would have heard my cat like maul it. Cut off a finger and had a pulmonary embolism this year. Wow. With my luck, Hanta is going to take me out before the end of the year. Yeah, pulmonary embolisms are no joke. No joke. Well, glad you're still here. Glad you're still here, Jeffrey. Stay strong, my friend. I shouldn't have to do this. Thanks for the $20. Appreciate that very much. Says P.S. Keaton, don't tell Russ since he's not here. But for some reason, when I saw you guys on Jimmy Dore, I thought it was creepy for some random reason. But you both grew on me. Haha. Just became a member. Well, thank you. Huzzah. Thank you, kind sir. Appreciate that very much. Kenman G says progressives really push the Assad chemical weapon attack. They love the idea of regime change and won't admit they are wrong. Thank you, Kenman. Appreciate that. All right, folks, we're going to move right on along to our next segment here. And for our next segment, we've got a surprise special guest. A surprise special guest for our next segment. This is a midterm-related segment where we're going to talk about some of the redistricting and how that has shaped the odds of the midterm elections. And so dissidents know what that means. That means we're going to admit our special election correspondent. He is joining on the phone, quote unquote, audio only, since he is a civilian. We're talking about our friend Cool Blue. Cool Blue is here. Cool Blue, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, good sir. Round of applause for Cool Blue in the chat. The OG dissidents know Cool Blue and love Cool Blue. So Cool Blue, just so everybody knows who you are, this was your prediction for the 2024 Electoral College. It was exactly right. Not just exactly right in terms of how the states would go, but you were pretty damn close in terms of the margins, were you not?
Yes, the percentage of the vote for Trump, I was off by 1 for Kamala Harris, but yeah.
So you got Trump's percentage exactly right. You were off by 1 for Kamala Harris. So that's in the nationwide popular vote. But in terms of the Electoral College, you called every single state. Cool Blue is one of the OG dissidents. He has been a fan and supporter of ours for a very long time. And I don't even bother doing predictions for elections anymore. You're my guy from now on. I ride with Cool Blue. So let's talk about this a little bit. Southern Republicans redistrict after Supreme Court rules. Dems lose big in Virginia. So they're doing all kinds of redistricting ahead of the midterms. The Republicans kind of started this with the redistricting in Texas, which is expected to net them up to 5 seats. And in response, the Democrats did a similar thing in California, and they've kind of been on this tit-for-tat thing. So as it stands right now, Republicans look to have gained themselves 14 seats through redistricting, Democrats 6. The Supreme Court of Virginia Friday nullified the results of a special election on April 21st, where 1.6 million Virginians approved redistricting that Democrats hope would win them 4 more House seats. In a 4-3 ruling, the court said the legislature followed the wrong process for putting the question, an amendment to the state constitution, on the ballot. Meanwhile, Southern Republicans rushed to redraw their state's congressional voting maps after an April 29th U.S. Supreme Court ruling, which weakened voting rights protections for minority communities. So let's take a look at this explanation of the Supreme Court decision vis-a-vis the Voting Rights Act. This is a fairly new channel called Constitutional Corner. I don't even know if this is AI, but I felt like the explanation was pretty good. So you may want to go and smash the subscribe button over there if you're so inclined. Let's take a look. Oh, what the hell? Oh, come on. Are you kidding me? Is that... Oh, all right. I'm going to have to do this the old-fashioned way. Sorry, Cool Blue. It played in the wrong language. So let's see here. Constitutional Corner. I'm going to search this now. For some reason, the stuff is playing in the wrong language sometimes. Don't worry. I will get it. It's important that I get this. Very, very important. So here we go. We got let's see. Where is this? What is it called here? Which voting rights case is next? Here we go. There we go. I think this is it. Let's see. No, this isn't it. Where the hell is it? Sorry, I will find it.
Virginia for the testify. Here we go. Looks like well, this is this here. Right here. This one is good enough. All right. Sorry about that, folks. We will get this going over here. All right, here we go. We're gonna do this the old-fashioned way. What the hell? Sorry, I just lost it again here. Where the hell did this go here? Two laws just collided. This is there we go. Okay, now I got it. All right, here we go. Sorry about that, folks. Let's take a look right over here. Share screen. Okay. There we go. All right. My apologies.
Court struck down Louisiana's congressional map in a 6-3 decision. Here's the constitutional structure that made this case impossible from the start. Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act requires states to draw maps that give minority voters a fair chance to elect their chosen representatives. In 2022, a federal court ruled Louisiana's map violated that requirement. It had only one majority black district, despite black voters being roughly a third of the state. Louisiana was ordered to draw a second majority black district. It did. Then a second group of voters sued, arguing that new map violated the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause. Today, the Supreme Court agreed. Justice Alito wrote, "Compliance with Section 2 cannot justify a racial gerrymander." The court didn't repeal Section 2. It made compliance nearly impossible, because drawing a majority-minority district requires considering race, and the court just said that violates equal protection. Justice Kagan's dissent called it a, quote, demolition of the Voting Rights Act. The law still exists. Enforcing it just got structurally blocked. Which voting rights case should I break down next?
Okay, so what he's basically saying is now you can't draw a majority-minority district, even if that is in the service of protecting an incumbent or carving out a new district, because to do that requires some sense of racial manipulation. Is that more or less correct, Cool Blue? Is that more or less what he's saying?
It is.
Okay, great. There we go. See, this is what I mean. Cool Blue is my guy. All right, so now they got that squared away. Court rulings push Trump's redistricting tally ahead of Democrats. So with the striking down of the Virginia map, which would have netted Democrats 4, now Republicans have pulled significantly far ahead in the redistricting war, which means now it looks like rather than Democrats needing only 3 seats to regain the House, they're going to need to basically flip or gain in open districts somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 12 seats. Louisiana versus Calais ruling has remade the redistricting race that President Trump began last year to help Republicans hold on to the House this fall. In Louisiana, Republican Governor Jeff Landry suspended the May 6 primaries for Congress after early votes had already been cast. So now the southern states are starting to smell some blood in the water. Given that Supreme Court case, they are now trying to essentially redistrict or redraw district lines so as to essentially dilute the power of the Democratic vote, i.e. the black vote. Republican-led legislatures in Alabama and Tennessee have started special redistricting sessions within 4 days of the ruling. South Carolina Republicans have started steps toward redrawing there. Protesters have flooded Capitol buildings in Montgomery, Alabama, and Nashville. Civil rights activists and Democratic lawmakers have said the redistricting dilutes the voting power of black voters, hearkening back to the South's history before the movement for civil rights. So here is a scene in Tennessee. Tennessee is showing up and protesting in front of their legislators because they do not want minority voters' rights to be suppressed. here in Florida. DeSantis is looking to redraw the map, which would gain 4 Republican seats. Floridians are pissed off with DeSantis and his redistricting without giving them the right to vote for it. This isn't going to end well for him and Republicans. Let's take a look at this video.
79, being 79, I come from a Jim Crow era where blacks were second class citizens. It will not happen again.
Emotions are running high here at the Florida State Capitol in Tallahassee, where Governor Ron DeSantis just proposed new maps that could add 4 more seats for Republicans and could greatly diminish the voices of Democratic voters.
It's just not fair, it's just not legal, it's just not right, it's not good for our democracy.
And this latest round of gerrymandering here in Florida brought Democrats from across the state here to the Capitol out in protest.
Hands off our maps! Hands off our maps!
Now, Republicans control the state House, the state Senate, and the governor's mansion here in Florida, which means that even though the legislature needs to vote on this proposal, it's widely expected to pass.
They're trying to dilute and get rid of those districts so they have any voice at all.
You could say one thing directly to Governor DeSantis right now. What would you tell him?
Get your hands off of our voting rights. I've just had enough of it, and I think all of us have.
Now, Cool Blue, it seems to me like there's a bit of a double standard, if you will, here. The court seems to be saying that you can't carve out a district and consider the racial demographics of that district. But it seems like that is kind of what a lot of these red states are doing. They're just doing so for the sake of what? Protecting incumbents. So does that offer an alternate rationale than to say that this is racial gerrymandering? Does that make sense?
I think there's more than one way to look at this. Now, what you're touching on there is one way to look at it, that it is racially motivated.
Right.
But my thinking actually is that Trump is just trying to manufacture seats in the Republican column with states that are normally aligned to the Republicans at the level of U.S. president. These specific states that get mentioned are, for example, I have like the 10 best states that the Republicans carried in 2024 when they won with re-election for Trump were number 1, Wyoming, 2, West Virginia, 3, Idaho, 4, North Dakota, 5, Oklahoma, 6, Tusker's home state, Arkansas, 7, Kentucky, 8, Alabama, 9, Tennessee, and 10, South Dakota. And in those 10 states, the Democrats have only 4 U.S. House seats, and there are 39 U.S. House seats between those 10 states. So it's like a strategy to say, okay, let's try and max it out where we have, this is talking about the Republicans, 100% of the seats in all these states. And then after the 10 best performed states, take it even further to like the top 15 best, the top 20 best, and make it harder for the Democrats who could win this. A lot of people are thinking the Democrats could win a pickup of the U.S. House in 2026 with a seats count in, say, the 240s. Well, make it harder on them by knocking off 10 from that amount and limit them to like the 230s. I think it's a strategic sort of a thing, whether or not this was racially motivated.
Well, it seems like for example, in Tennessee, to take a largely black city of Memphis and carve it up into 3 different districts is racially motivated. You're diluting the power of the black vote. You're turning a majority black district, which would be a blue district, which it currently is, and you're basically splitting the black city into 3 so that those votes are diluted by the white people in the suburbs and in the rural areas outside of Memphis. Now, didn't the Supreme Court say you can't do that? Or can you only not do that where no other explanation is plausible? In other words, if you're because what the Supreme Court said is you're allowed to redistrict in order to protect incumbents. So is that what they can cite as an alternate rationale? Because it seems like pretty blatantly a racial gerrymander in that example, does it not?
Well, how's the Supreme Court going to interpret it from one period to the next of who makes up the U.S. Supreme Court? This particular U.S. Supreme Court, we have their answer. But from decades past, and if you go back 60 years ago, you're talking about different periods of time and all that. I watch another person. Are you okay with me naming another content creator?
Of course. What am I going to say? Fuck no. No, yeah, go ahead.
It's not promotion.
It's fine.
It's not meant to be promotion. Philip
matter.
Scott. And he's a person who is black, FBA, and he has basically said that the issue of the Voting Rights Act is dating back 60 years. And he says that for people who are black, what we need are not our voting rights. We have them. What we need is, as he calls it, paper. In other words, when you're talking about the economic backgrounds altogether of people who are black, they're not in need of their Voting Rights Act. They've had them for 60 years, roughly. They need to be on an economic level that does not have them on the low end of the totem pole anymore. They need to be elevated.
Well, to that point, you know, one of the poetic things here is that it looks like James Clyburn's district may be gerrymandered out of existence. So here's James Clyburn on MSNBC talking about this as a possibility.
Congressman Ralph Norman, who is running for governor, by the way. Well, he wants redistricting to push out the only Democrat in the state's delegation. That's Congressman James Clyburn. And joining us, just say, is there any coincidence, okay, that of every single seat that is being targeted by Republicans seems to be represented by someone who is either black and or brown?
I don't think there's any coincidence in this at all. Every city that you see under attack seems to be headed by someone who is either black or brown. All of the issues you see taking place in Washington, D.C., they seem to be a little bit technicolor.
Now, to what you were just saying, Cool Blue, James Clyburn's district is among the poorest in the country. It's among the most immiserated in the country. James Clyburn takes in, you know, tens of thousands of dollars of special interest money every cycle. We interviewed his opponent, Marcel Dixon, back when he was running against him in 2022, and talks about how it's a food desert. I mean, you know, James Clyburn is just an absolute horror. And so when you look at a guy like him and you think about, well, he's going to be legislated out of a seat, again, to your point, right? You know, how important is that when you look at his record in his district and how just horribly corrupt he has been? Is that what you were kind of getting at just a minute ago?
Well, I try not to comment on James Clyburn specifically and anybody else specifically, because I'm thinking about what motivates Trump and the Republicans. South Carolina, in 2024, South Carolina was Trump's number 18 best performed state, meaning the Democrats, it took them 33 states to get there. And there are 7 House districts, U.S. House districts, and the Democrats have just one James Clyburn seat. So the Republicans have 85 to 86% the seats in South Carolina. They want to move that up to the full 100%. That's the way that I'm looking at a lot of this, because I mean, we're considering more than one way to look at this, of course, the racial motivation of it. But I think that what the Republicans, what Trump is doing is saying pretty much to the hell with all that. I want to maximize as possible these states that are aligned to this party and any of these other issues, including whether it's racial discrimination. It's just like, you know, push through it all, no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, I think the realities of race politics are such that the means
by which they're doing this is to carve up the black districts. So again, you get into semantics here with this SCOTUS ruling where they're saying, well, you can't take race into consideration when you're drawing up these districts. That is very clearly what the Republicans are doing here. There's no question about it. Now, you can come up with an alternative explanation for why they're doing it, but the mechanism that makes it useful is the fact that black people vote overwhelmingly blue. And so if you take a majority black district and you carve that land up into 4 different districts that now become majority white districts, then you are effectively disenfranchising those black voters. Now, is that racial discrimination? Yeah, I think it is. But whether I think it is or isn't, in other words, whether that's what motivates them is really not the main question. The main question here is, are they drawing the lines the way they're drawing the lines because of the demographics that will fit within those newly drawn lines? Does that make sense? Like, that's why they're doing it. What motivates them to do it, whether it's racial hatred or racial discrimination or not, like what makes it effective is the fact that black people vote overwhelmingly Democrat. So the more you dilute their presence in each district, the more likely you are to swing that district from blue to red. Does that make sense?
I understand, but I do think it's about power more than anything else.
Well, of course it is. No, I'm agreeing.
What you're mentioning is coming along with it. Racial, sure, add that to it. But it's about power, number one. And Trump is basically trying to do for his Republican Party, further push whatever power they figure that they can have. Even if they lose the U.S. House, do a little bit more minimizing of what the Democrats can do in terms of the numbers of U.S. House seats.
Sure.
That's his main motivator.
100%. 100%. I think you're right about that. And maybe, to your point, that is why the Republicans feel empowered to do this, because there is an alternative explanation, as opposed to what the Democrats did, which was, but I'm sorry, it still doesn't jibe with me, because if the Democrats were wrong to create that second majority black district in Louisiana that then got struck down, and you're saying, well, they did that because there's a lot of black people within those borders, therefore it's more likely to vote to go blue. You could say the exact same thing for what the Republicans are doing in Tennessee, where they're divvying Memphis up. You could just say, well, the way you drew the lines is so that there will be fewer black people there, so that it'll go red. I don't really see the difference. I mean, maybe to your point, that's just the biases of this court coming through, because to me, it seems like the exact same underlying dynamic is informing both of those gerrymandering moves. The underlying dynamic being the more concentrated black voters are in a district, the bluer that district, the fewer black voters there are in a district, especially in the South, the redder. So I don't really see the difference there. I don't see how one is allowed, but the others aren't. Maybe it won't be. Maybe those will be challenged and struck down too. Fingers crossed. But not, good luck with this court.
You know what's I think the most insultingly gerrymandered state is actually Wisconsin, leading bellwether state from the Rust Belt. And in 2016 and 2020, it was a tipping point state, is where Trump got his 270th electoral vote. Biden in 2020 is 279th electoral vote. That's what I'm talking about for anybody who doesn't understand. After election is over with, you take the states that carried for the winner, the prevailing party. You list them in descending order, their percentage points margins, and you track their cumulative electoral votes along the way. And in 2016, 2020, that's where Wisconsin was exactly the tipping point. And in 2024, when Trump won re-election, he carried 31 states, and Wisconsin ranked as number 31, his 312th electoral vote, last on the list. Wisconsin has 6 out of its 8 U.S. House seats in the column for the Republicans. That's 75% of the seats in a state that's 50-50. Why
Wow.
is that? Gwen Moore and Mark Pocan are the two Democratic U.S. House members from the state of Wisconsin, and their congressional districts are pretty much like 25 percentage points more Democratic versus the state. So the drawing of that state was to go ahead and, I'm not sure if I want to use the word confine, pretty much cast them aside in a particular area so that they could get the Democrats to number 2 out of 8 and leave the other 6 to the Republicans. That was the design of it. And I think a lot of these other states follow suit. Like in this year's elections, I think that Wisconsin, and this helped with the 2025 special election for Wisconsin Supreme Court, I think that they may gain 2 seats to go up to 4 out of 8 for 50%, which were kind of right or wrong.
Well, that definitely. Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's not that. It's that I'm looking at a lot of this from state to state. And while racial motivation is involved somewhat, I know that I'm repeating myself here, but I really think it's just a matter of power and how much, coming from the Republicans' position, how well they can do it from state to state, but starting with states that are normally aligned to them for U.S. president, and see if they can just take. It's hard to get 100% the seats in a state that ranks, for the Republicans, like their numbers 11 through 20 best performed.
Right.
See what you can do to pack a lot of the heavily Democratic areas and limit the individual number of districts, and maybe come up with a majority number of that given state's U.S. House seats in the column for the Republicans anyway.
Oh, sure. No, I don't disagree with a word of that. My point is not that they are motivated by racial discrimination, but that figuring out where the black votes are versus where the white votes are is the means by which they are achieving this power play. Now, you got to get pretty semantical to say, well, that's not the same as a racial gerrymander. And this is where there seems to be a double standard in the decision, because if you're going to strike the Democrat map down by saying, well, that's a racial gerrymander because all you did was draw a circle around where all the black people live and call that a district, well, then to me, it's like, how can you then not say that dividing Memphis up into whatever it is, 3 different districts, is not essentially the flip version of that? I mean, it is, whether that's what motivates you or not. The point is that is the means by which you are achieving this power play, where you find Republican districts in, like you said, those 11 through 20 states. But in terms of the motivation, I agree. And perhaps that is the semantical sticking point for the court. Perhaps it is as simple as that. Perhaps it isn't. Perhaps some of these districts, some of these gerrymanders will be challenged at the Supreme Court level, and perhaps they'll rule the same way. I can't imagine how they couldn't. But anyway, be that as it may, the point is, as of now, and maybe some of these maps will change, maybe there will be court rulings that go the other way, but as of now, the Republicans have made it a steeper climb for the Democrats to win the House. The Virginia map would have essentially made it virtually 100% certainty the Democrats would win the House. Now the odds are different in a way that we'll talk about a little bit. So Frank Luntz says there's every reason to believe the House will still go to Democrats, who need to flip just 3 GOP-held seats. But conversations with more than a dozen Democrats across the country on Friday made one thing clear: the road to a House majority in November is harder than before. Now, one of the reasons why Democrats are still the odds-on favorites to win the House is because of numbers like this, where you see Donald Trump's approval rating with independents just in absolute shambles.
The worst net approval ratings with independents at this point in term 2 of a presidency. Guess who has the worst net approval rating? It's the current president, Donald John Trump. We're talking about the fact that he's 43 points underwater. That is actually worse That is actually worse than Richard Nixon was during the height of the Watergate scandal back in 1974. Nixon was just 36 points underwater. Trump easily beating that, but in the wrong way. Trump is also beating George W. Bush, who is 35 points underwater. Of course, he was caught up in the Iraq war at this particular point in his presidency. Very interesting to note, of course, Trump right now involved with the Iran war, Bush involved with the Iraq war. In neither case is it working out well for those two presidents. But
okay, so that is what makes it still a steep climb for the Republicans to win the House. Okay, so now is the $1 million question for you, Cool Blue. Since you are now my guy, I don't bother registering predictions anymore. What you say is what I say. Ultimately, how do you think this changes the forecast for the midterms in terms of the Democrats winning the House?
Well, let me do this for you before I give you my straight up answer.
Okay.
Due Dissidents you and Russell had a year-end in 2025 special. And at some point, Russell and you gave some predictions about what you both think is going to happen in 2026, each of you.
Right.
And you specifically said that you had the feeling that the 2026 Democrats are going to win majority control pickups of both houses of Congress,
Correct.
U.S. House and U.S. Senate. The 17th Amendment, which allows direct elections of U.S. senators by states' voters, that dates back to the 1910s. And from 1914, which was year 2 of the presidency of Democrat Woodrow Wilson, through 2022, second year for Joe Biden, there were 28 midterm elections. The White House party was an overall prevailing party. That is, when you combine congressional gains in the U.S. House and U.S. Senate, the White House party gained in just 3 of those cycles. 1934, Franklin Roosevelt was the incumbent Democratic president. 1998, year 6 of Democrat Bill Clinton's presidency, that sent Newt Gingrich out of Congress. And then 2002, the Republican side with George W. Bush. It was a year after the attacks on U.S. soil of September 11, 2001. So in 1962, on the watch of Democratic incumbent John Kennedy, it was a tie for U.S. House and U.S. Senate. So score the White House party with 3.5 out of 28 election cycles that are midterms, and the White House opposition party won the overall gains in the other 24.5. So basically, for midterm elections, the White House party has been the prevailing party in 1 out of 8 midterm election cycles, the opposition in the other 7 out of 8. And since the year 2006, but not including the year 2012, when you factor both midterm elections and presidential elections, we've had 18 years, 10 combined election cycles that are midterms and presidentials. And we've had a party switch along the way in 9 out of 10 when you consider U.S. President, U.S. House, U.S. Senate. 2012, it was a Democratic hold for president for Barack Obama for the U.S. Senate and a Republican hold for U.S. House. All the rest, we've been switching. So in this election, I don't think what Donald Trump and the Republicans are doing is going to stop the Democrats from winning over control. And I think that you're right. The 2026 Democrats will win majority control, pick up at both houses of Congress. But I also think, and I didn't catch that year-end special live, I caught it like the next day. I also think the 2026 Democrats are going to win a pickup to establish a majority number of overall U.S. governors, which means at least 26 out of 50. And this last happened in 2002. It happened, all 3 of them, in the midterm elections in 1918, 1946, 1954, 1994, and 2006. And the feeling that I have is, if you want numbers, well, the averages for U.S. House seats in this period, under these circumstances, it all 3 flipped to the opposition. For U.S. House, the average has been 236 seats. For U.S. Senate, between 51 and 52. And for U.S. governors, pretty much 27 or 28. And I think we're going to finish just about on par with that when this is said and done.
Yeah. I mean, well, thank you for registering that. Now I know what to go with. That was my instinct too. I mean, when you look at the overperformance, not just in the polls, but in the voting numbers, I mean, really any district that's Republican plus 10 or fewer is essentially in play. And so I think you're going to see a lot of the toss-up districts go blue because of the enthusiasm gap and because of just Trump's absolutely dismal rating with independents. But this does definitely make it a significantly heavier lift. And this is what we thought would happen the whole time. This is what I thought would happen the whole time, that they would just figure out ways to try and make this as small of a blue wave as they can. The gerrymandering is part of that. I would not be surprised at all. In fact, I kind of predicted that they would start using ICE to patrol the polling places. So we will have to see how far things go. But as of now, yeah, I think that assessment is right. So you are sticking with now. When I predicted it, I predicted the Democrats would gain 30 plus seats. That was just a lazy prediction. I didn't really research much before. That might be a bit ambitious given the fact that they're starting from whatever it is, 214 or so. But I think so. What do you think? You think they'll gain in like the 20 range?
Let me put it this way. Right now, for minority numbers, with election 2004, the U.S. House, the Democrats ended up with 215 out of 435 seats. That's the equivalent of 49.42% of the seats in the House. They ended up with 47 out of 100 seats in the U.S. Senate. That's 47.00% of the seats in the U.S. Senate. And with the Democratic pickup in 2025 for governor of Virginia to Abigail Spanberger, the Democrats 24 out of 50 governorships, 48.00%. So the U.S. Senate is the lowest percentage that they have for the minority status. 47%. Think of these numbers: 47% with U.S. Senate right now, 48% for U.S. governors, and 49.42% of the seats in the U.S. House. For a minority party, that's pretty much like arriving at the door, just knocking at it, and the person at the residence is willing to answer on all three counts. It's going to be very easy, actually, if there's like a correlation, which is what I'm suspecting, where voters are just in the mood to go blue because they're looking at Trump with the issue of inflation along with everything else, but they're looking at their very own money situation, and they're not in the mood to color in red this year. They're going to color blue just because they figure, I got to do a change here, whatever you figure is a change. So I think that the Democrats are going to increase on all three of these levels somewhere between 4 to 6%. So if they go like 53 to 55% of the seats in the House, you're in the area of 230 to 240 seats. And I can actually picture 53% of the seats in the U.S. House with pickups of 6 states. The 47 they have right now, pickups in North Carolina, Maine, Alaska, Ohio, Iowa, and Texas. I think I just named 6 there.
I think so, yeah.
And for U.S. governors, there is this feeling that Kansas is going to switch from Democratic to Republican to set the Democrats back to 23. But they can counter with a pickup of 4 pretty easily. Winning pickups of Georgia, Keisha Bottoms, who's an Atlanta mayor or former, Ohio, where there's a very good chance Vivek Ramaswamy is not going to win that race and Amy Acton will instead.
Right.
Iowa, where the Democratic candidate is polling better and can flip that. By that point, you're up to 26, which is a majority number. And 2 states that I have in mind are Nevada, the Republican incumbent Joe Lombardi. You got enough Hispanics in the state that can possibly flip Democratic. And then Alaska, which is a state that's been trending away from the Republicans and toward the Democrats. It was Donald Trump's number 22 best state. The Democrats number 29. And it used to take the Democrats more than 40 states to be able to have a shot at Alaska. And Mary Peltola, who used to be the state's at-large Congresswoman, is favored to win a Democratic pickup of the U.S. Senate seat in that state. So I think there's going to be a correlation of this. And by the time we look at how the Democrats going to 2027 are newly empowered, on all counts, they're going to be falling somewhere between 51 to 55% of all of it. So, you know, it's just a matter of, hey, you play 3-digit lottery. What's a number you like? My grandmother used to like 537. Well, let's go with like 237 if you like that as a 3-digit number for U.S. House seats. Your guess is as good as mine. My grandma's guess is as good as mine. But I try and give an estimate, and I try and explain why I'm thinking along these lines.
Well, your guesses were pretty damn good last time. I encourage everybody to follow Cool Blue on Twitter. That's the handle right there, at CoolBlue71. Cool Blue, thanks so much for making time for us tonight. Great to see you, man. For everybody who knows, Cool Blue is with us now on election night, so he'll be with us during the night of the midterms, helping us crunch these numbers for pretty obvious reasons. You're really great at it. Everybody should follow him on Twitter to get these insights. Always great talking to you, my friend. Thanks so much for making time tonight.
Thank you, Keaton. Thank you to everybody. Happy Mother's Day, everyone.
You got it, man. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Round of applause for Cool Blue in the chat. Round of applause for Jake in the booth. Thanks, Jake, for being here, of course. All right, I'm going to do one more segment because I'm off on Tuesday, so I'm going to go the extra mile for you all tonight and do one more, and then we're going to head to the Q&A. It's a quick one. Last segment's a quick one. David Santucci says, and remember how after Assad fell, they found all those chemical weapons. Oh, wait, they didn't? Never mind. Vienticus Prime says, I'm saying we need to go back to physical QWERTY keypads and ditch the on-screen bullshit. Thanks, Vienticus. Appreciate that. Tusker, thanks for the $50. Tusker, appreciate that very much. Let's get our digital cowbell for Tusker over there. Russell just texted me. He is back in New York. Back in New York. I would say you should call in, but I don't think he's through customs yet. I think he's got to go through some airport bureaucracy. But Russell has landed and will be back on Thursday. Jake, can you do me a favor and post that Vienticus one? I deleted it by accident just now. It should be the second in the queue. Andy Gardner says, rumor has it Russ is chilling with aliens in an MH370 portal. That's the big rumor. Ha. He is landed. He is stateside. So welcome back, Russell Dobular, to the United States of America. Excuse me. Vienticus Prime, I'm saying we need to go back to physical QWERTY keypads. Oh, we got this one already. Sorry, Vienticus. I thought I messed you up there. All right. So Jake will be heading over to Rumble after this final segment of the evening. But before we do our final segment of the evening, I do want to tell you about our friends and partners at Chapter who help millions of seniors find Medicare plans that are right for them. A lot of seniors, when they go to enroll in Medicare plans, they talk to advisors, quote unquote, who are more brokers than advisors, because brokers get paid by insurance companies to sell you specific plans that you don't need, and their income depends on what you enroll in. So that's not an actual advisor. That's a salesperson with a conflict of interest that they don't tell you about. So you end up making choices based on advice that was not designed to help you. And this is how millions of people end up on the wrong Medicare plans. Chapter is the exception. Chapter is the only national advisor that compares every plan in the country. Their advisors are all salary-based, so there's no hidden incentives on their part. You just tell them your doctors, you tell them your prescriptions, and they do the work of finding the plans that are right for you. And if you already have a plan that they deem is the right one for you, then they'll say thank you very much, and you'll have a nice day, and that'll be the end of that. So it's worth a call. It's free. It's no obligation. You have nothing to lose. A call with Chapter. It lasts 20 minutes. You get to speak to a person right away. The number is 404-706-0804 to give them a call. You can also click the link in the description of the video.
but that number is set up just for dissidents. So 404-706-0804. You talk to a person right away. There's no jerking you around with the endless press 1 for this, press 2 for that kind of thing. So give chapter a call if you are 65 or soon to be 65 and looking to enroll in Medicare. All right, let's move right on along. All right, folks, we got one more segment to do. I saw our friends on Revolutionary Change cover this, and so I thought, you know what? It's just made me so mad that I have to cover this. So here is Tom Steyer, by the way, who Our Revolution is now supporting for governor of California. Yeah, the Bernie group is supporting the billionaire for California governor because he says he's for Medicare for all now. Well, here he is being pressed by Hasan Piker about whether or not Israel has perpetrated a genocide in Gaza. And I want you to see how he squirms here.
What I think is this. I think that this Israeli government has been trying to take over the entire country and expel the Palestinians and take over the whole thing, kit and caboodle. And that's what they've been doing for a long time. It's absolutely wrong. There's no question there. And they're willing to commit war crimes to do it. That's what I think. And that's been going on for a long time.
So you don't want to make you're not committing to the term genocide.
I don't actually, I think, you tell me if this is what it means, because it's sort of like socialism, if you excuse my saying so. Do I think they're trying to kill all the Palestinians? No.
No,
I think I don't. I think
that's not what genocide means. That is not what genocide means. It's truly amazing and insulting and despicable that you're running for governor of California and you don't even bother to figure out the meaning of the word that is at the crux of so many people's questions when it comes to your candidacy. But that is not the definition of genocide.
They're trying to expel the Palestinians from the country, that they're trying to have one state.
That would be genocidal intent.
I don't know what that is, but that's what they're trying to do.
You don't know what that is?
That is a genocidal intent.
They're clearly trying to take over the West Bank. They're clearly trying to take over Gaza. They're willing to, go to extreme merciless lengths in order to do that. Hasan, that's what there's a history that's 10 years of doing that.
Ha! It's longer than 10 years.
Well, whatever. Yeah,
started off with ethnic cleansing in 1948, but
that's what's going on. I don't know I honestly don't know what genocide means, but what I do know is
you don't know what genocide means. So have you thought to maybe learn what genocide means? Like, let's just take you at your word that you don't know what it means. Don't you think, given the conversation in the Democratic Party for the last 2.5 years, you may want to learn the definition of that word? Under what other circumstance would it be acceptable for a politician to be like, yeah, and I don't even know what that word means? So if you ask, hey, what's your tax policy? Well, I mean, what are taxes really? I mean, I don't know. That's a word. I don't know what the word taxes mean. You'd say this guy's a fucking idiot who has no business running for governor. Hey, Mr. Steyer, what's your health care plan? Well, I mean, healthcare, that's just a word. I don't really know what that word means. You'd laugh them out of the room. How is it at all acceptable to, at this point in time, punt on the word genocide like that? I don't know what that means. You're running for the governor of the largest state in the country by population and certainly by GDP. You don't know what the word genocide means?
That's what's going on. I don't know I honestly don't know what genocide means, but what I do know is they are trying to end up controlling the whole state.
Okay, let's just teach Tom Steyer what the word genocide means. Now, if you watch this show enough, certainly you know this list by now, since we have referred to this list multiple times. But here is Article 2 of the Genocide Convention, the definition according to the United Nations. In the present convention, genocide means any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group as such. So, does not have to satisfy all 5 of these, only has to satisfy one of these. Any one of these constitutes a genocide. Tom Steyer, who doesn't know what the word means,
Hey, Tom, how would you regulate the banks? Well, what is a bank, really? What does that word even mean? I don't even know the word bank. What is that? Killing members of the group. Well, there you go. Causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group. There you go. Deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. Once again, it's not just because, well, they don't want to kill all of them, so then it's not a genocide. Nonsense. We just did a segment about the sabotaging of the water infrastructure in Gaza. That is item number 3. Number 4, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group. What do we talk about in that water segment? How attacking the water supply and water filtration systems and just irrigation systems in general makes it very, very difficult for pregnant mothers to carry their babies to term. So check, number 4. Number 5, forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. Well, that's the one that they haven't completed entirely yet, but they've been working on it. They've been talking about finding other countries to take Palestinian children in. So there you go. At least 4.5 out of those 5 points have been satisfied by the Israelis over the past 2.5 years. Only one is necessary for them to be guilty of genocide. And yet this guy insists he doesn't know what the word means. It doesn't look like they're trying to kill all of them.
Actually, do I think, you tell me if this is what it means, because it's sort of like socialism, if you excuse my saying so. Do I think they're trying to kill all the Palestinians? No.
But that's not what it means. That's not what it means. I would love for somebody to just read him that definition. First ask, okay, do you accept the UN, as a body that is capable of defining this? And then question number 2, we're going to read you these points. And now, would you agree that they're committing a genocide? It's amazing how so many politicians, I mean, Tom Steyer, this is the most recent one, you just revert to, well, I don't know what that word, well, why not? Well, why is it acceptable that you don't know what that word, how could you run for governor of California amidst the genocide that your party is enraged about to the point where they've abandoned Israel in ways that no one thought imaginable 3 years ago? And this guy says, well, I don't really know what that word means. So when you say you don't know what that word means, what you're saying is I don't care. That's what you're saying. You're saying I don't care enough about a genocide to learn the definition of the word. It doesn't mean enough to me. That's what you're saying. That is unmistakably what you're saying. If you gave a shit, you'd learn the definition of the word and you'd be able to talk about it the way we just did. We're not geniuses here. Takes 3 minutes to learn that. Takes 20 seconds to read it. Item number 1, killing members of the group. Boom. Done. Doesn't mean every single one of them has to be killed. So I just thought that was worth registering, because I think that politicians need to be pressured even more on this. I think because Tom Steyer, like I said, he's not the only guy to do this. There are a lot of them that try and wiggle out of this. Well, it depends on how you define genocide. No, you can define it very specifically and make them answer yes or no. And I think that should be something that is asked of every politician from every party seeking office at essentially any level. And so thought we should point that out for Tom Steyer there. All right, folks, we're going to take our remaining chats and rants here. Shady Deals, the history of California alone should give him a hint, along with a couple dozen other states. Yeah, exactly. Genocide, Geno, source birth, side kill. That's right. P. Walker, was Steyer Rip Van Winkle? Did he go to sleep on October 6th and woke up yesterday? Media discussion of it talking about genocide all that time. Indeed, P. Walker. Thanks very much for that. All right, great show tonight, everybody. Thanks very much for being a part of it. Appreciate you all very much. Thanks to Jake in the booth. Thanks to the YouTubers. Thanks to the Rumblers. Thanks for the mods, for keeping the peace in the chat. Thanks to Cool Blue for coming on. Thanks to Garland Nixon, our special guest co-host for tonight. Thanks, everybody, for spending the evening with us. We are now going to break for 5 minutes and head over to Rumble for the Q&A. Members are welcome to call in. Everyone else is welcome to hang and chat in the Rumble room. So that's the link right there, dodissidents.com/Rumble. That takes you to the link to this very live stream. So if you are hanging out for the Q&A, we will see you in 5 minutes after a brief intermission. If you're not hanging out for the Q&A, we will see you again Thursday, 12 p.m. Once again, no show Tuesday. I'm finishing up my move on Tuesday, so no show Tuesday. We will be back Thursday at 12 p.m. with Russell Dobular back in the saddle. Back for Thursday. So this is my last show piloting the ship myself. I know the show has not been the same without Russ. I have felt that. I know many of you have felt that. But sincerely, thank you all for sticking with the show for this month and a half. You guys mean the world to us. We could not do this without you. So thank you so much for supporting me through this last month and a half. Thank you to all of our guest co-hosts who have just been phenomenal. Kit Cabello for holding it down every Tuesday has been a huge help, has made it so much easier to plan these because, you know, booking the guest hosts is effort in and of itself. So having Kit hold it down for us every Tuesday really freed us up to make the shows as good as they could possibly be. And then obviously I don't even want to start naming people lest I leave somebody out, but if you filled in at all over this past month and a half, you are the best. So thanks everybody for getting us through this time. Can't wait to be back on the air with my co-pilot on Thursday, and can't wait to take your calls in 5 minutes. So thanks everybody very much for being here tonight. Thank you, of course, for your continued support. You guys are the best. If you're sticking around for Q&A, we'll see you in 5 minutes. Other than that, we'll see you Thursday with the dynamic duo in their respective host chairs. Until whenever we see you again, thanks very much for this evening. Be safe and be well. Courage.
Please clap.